This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm calling to order the Select Board meeting for April 19th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. this evening. And if we could stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance to start with.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. Right. Well, this was actually billed as a potential joint meeting with FinCom, and apparently they had some issues posting their meeting. They posted the wrong date and didn't recognize it in time to make the correction. Therefore, they were not within the 48 hours of being able to change their meeting. Barbara, thanks for coming. They are welcome to come if they want to show up, but they won't be able to make any decision.
I got a message from Donna. She's running 5 minutes late.
Okay, great, wonderful, okay. So with that, we don't have any public hearings tonight. Do we have any open time for the public? If not, there's no old business, and we were going to really just focus tonight as much as we can on the budget and articles for a town meeting and see how far we get with things. And so I'm thinking, I know, Ed, you made some adjustments in the revenue report. Would you?
The only one I made to get to the 19,042,629 was I did reduce the use of ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation from 200,000 to 100,000.
Okay.
And probably the only other ones I'd even think about, and it's close, if we wanted to be a little bit more conservative, may want to think about reducing motor vehicle excise taxes right now. Do I want to? What have I got in there for that? Actually, I've got 980,000
Right.
in there for that, which I think is okay. If you wanted to reduce that by 10,000 and be a little more ultra-conservative, it's a possibility. And the other one would be to be a little bit more conservative if we wanted to reduce the cannabis tax from 75,000 to 65,000. Right now we have either 58,000 that's been received or will be received in the next week.
And then we'd have another quarter to go?
We'd have another quarter to go, correct.
Because they must be a quarter behind, right, in terms of their
Right.
payment?
The January 1st to March 31st quarter is due by May 1st.
Okay.
So then the quarter that is from April 1st through June 30th would be due by August 1st.
Can I go back to the motor vehicle excise tax?
Mm-hmm.
So the document that we got today, says that it went from 986 to 992, between 20 and 21 estimate.
Mm-hmm.
And then the proposed for 2023 that you're talking about possibly reducing is
980.
980. Why, what's the rationale for that?
That was,
Well, the 992 was my original estimate for fiscal year 22. What was booked into DLS was, and I'm going to have to go back and, I don't know if I can get in there or not. Hang on, let me see. I believe it was like 970. So let me see if I can get into that. Hang on.
So we don't have actuals of what we've received in '22?
So far, and I'm going by memory, and this would have been before January 1st, we had received a little over 200,000. And then I had checked with the assessors, and for the 2 commitments that have been sent out since January 1st, there was one that was,
824 and 101.
Yeah.
I was gonna say 826 and 101, so about a total of 926, 927.
Do we have an idea of how many commitments are usually made every year? I'm assuming the 824 is the large one, and then it's just
Correct.
smaller ones as the year continues on.
Right, for people that have, you know, purchased cars after
Right.
basically the beginning of the year.
So that total was what you just said?
926?
925.
926, so an estimate of 980.
Like $68,000 less than less.
It's the most, shall we say, it's the one that covers everything else. I'm comfortable at the 980,000.
So that was a reduction though from our last meeting, right? Or not? Or our last,
The 980 is what I had in there from
You had that in there,
our
okay.
last meeting.
okay.
And just from that last meeting and some of the comments from the finance committee, like I said, if you wanted to be a little more ultra-conservative, you could drop that to 970. I don't think there's any need to drop it below 970.
Okay. We might need to stick one mic over on that table if we could.
Based on what you've just said, I don't see a need to reduce it.
Seems like it's pretty, I mean, we're catching up on it. It seems like it would be able to be achieved, don't you think?
On the cannabis tax, I mean, we haven't received that much yet, so if we wanted to,
Knock that a little bit,
I
maybe?
would probably recommend dropping that to 65,000.
Okay. So Donna, just to catch you up, thanks for coming. We just started with the revenue sheet.
Okay.
Oops. Just talking about a couple changes, or where we had thought about some possible reductions, just to be a little bit more conservative. So we were just talking about the motor vehicle and excise tax that had been put in there at 980, and Ed says we've already got about 926 thereabouts committed, right?
Correct.
And so,
Well, that's only 2 commitments, and we get commitments every year, so,
Right.
every other month throughout the year.
yeah, so we were feeling that that was, 980 was okay to leave as pretty conservative, but we're looking at the cannabis tax to knock that one down a little bit, maybe.
I mean,
So far, there's
I
only
was
been
thinking
2
we might be able
commitments.
to go up on that. I wondered what the total fiscal year commitments were for
Previous year?
the previous year, or even July 1st to now, you know, for this fiscal year that we're in now.
I don't know if we.
We had already received 200 and, what was it, 14,000, John,
You
for
said through December.
fiscal year '22 for the period July 1st through December 31st.
Yeah, so a couple 100,000 in that first 6 months
That
received.
we received, but not that was
Committed?
committed.
Yeah.
I was looking at the commitment amounts, I
Yeah.
guess.
So that and the, where's the cannabis? Okay. Cannabis tax is right now at 75, and Ed, you were thinking possibly 65? Just to-
What's that?
The cannabis tax, I'm sorry, at 75?
What's the line at right now?
75 is what's estimated at.
Yeah.
No, I mean, what's the line in FY '22?
There wasn't any,
As of December, we don't have anything.
we don't
but-
have anything.
But we had just had an expense report that was good up until like a
Yes.
week or 2 ago. What's that amount?
Expense, but not revenue.
Right.
That
No.
doesn't show revenue.
It's not the
Revenue's
revenue
always still-
report.
It shows 3% of what they're putting in, right?
Correct, and what we either have already on the books to December 31st, or from what we will have
We have at least
committed
2
that we will
quarters.
receive in the next quarter, would take us to $58,000.
Right, so how much, we have 2 quarters that we know of, right? You know what those amounts are?
Yes. No, I don't know, I do not remember what the specific quarterly amounts were. They come in from the state. Yeah, and what was actually booked in DLS for the fiscal year '22 motor vehicle excise estimated revenues was $965.
So 965 was estimated for
In the
21?
DLS.
For 22?
Yeah, my original estimate, when we had done the budget for the annual town meeting, was 992.
Okay, but what got booked was 965.
Correct.
All right, so now predicting 980 on the motor vehicle.
I'm still comfortable with the 980.
All right, then if you're comfortable, unless I hear loud screams, let's not belabor it. We got lots to go through tonight. Cannabis tax, though, is it worth going down a little bit on that? And then the other one you said was the ambulance receipts. You already moved that down to 100,000?
Yes, I did. And I've been told our fiscal year '21 motor vehicle excise tax commitments were $984,397.
Okay. So, any comments, questions? Budgeting at 980 or estimating 980 seems fine.
I'm fine with excise.
Yeah,
Is there a separate line for the cannabis impact fee versus the?
yes, there is.
We have the impact fee at $30,000.
30,000.
That's the one that
Right.
DLS recommended that we be very ultra-conservative
That's okay.
on,
I'm looking, that's the expense.
because that will probably disappear at some point in time.
Mhm. So 30,000 is the conservative number?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Okay, so with those figures, are we okay leaving cannabis at 75, or do you want to knock it down 10 and then we're down a little bit less?
Knock it down 10, just to be sure.
I'm still a little confused about this. I thought that our obligation was $10,000 for 3 years. Is that wrong?
That's a different fee. It's not an impact fee.
What is it? Where is it in the, where is it in the income?
It doesn't show up here.
Okay, so the impact fee is, tell me the difference then, because my understanding was there are 2 income streams. One of them was 3% of all income, and the other one was the 10,000 for 3 years.
So the
Correct.
3% would be under the cannabis tax, which should have its own revenue line, I would think, so that we can track it.
It does. There's 2 different 3%, so you can say theoretically they'll track the same.
Mm-hmm.
The impact fee and the cannabis tax are both at 3%.
And that 10,000 is what we're supposed to mitigate with, right? That's the programming or, which would be
Correct.
separate, and it's not in here because it's an offset.
Right, exactly.
What do you mean it's an offset?
But in the
It's not part of the general fund, you have to spend it specifically on
Right.
Like a
treatment
special
or-
revenue.
right,
Yeah,
Education,
yeah.
but it is in the revenue sheet that we have here, estimated at
Yeah,
30,000.
well, yeah,
Doesn't sound right to me.
yeah, it's under
It
local
is not in the
receipts.
revenue sheets.
It's not?
Yes, correct, because that is an offset. What's in there is the impact fee and the tax.
Where does
Why are
it
we
show up?
showing it here then? Can't use it.
It does not show up because it's an offset to be used for a specific use. It does not go
Right,
to the general
Two of
fund.
the 3 are on here,
Yes,
and the 2 that are on here can be for general fund use. But of the 2 that are on here, the impact fee is the one that DLS or DOR says, wait until you have 3 years of history before you try to adjust it. 'Cause
well,
it's gonna go away.
it's also the one that either through legislation or probably by the time this community host gets reshaped shall we say, renegotiated, probably won't be eligible.
Right.
But that was,
At least how it is currently done in percentage-wise.
But the one listed on here is the tax. That is the pure 3% add additional sales tax collected at the time of purchase.
The meals tax, the cannabis tax is on here.
Right. But I'm saying that's
From
what
the
that
state.
is.
That's the one that was at 75, I'm recommending you go to 65. The cannabis impact fee through the community host agreement is also on here at $30,000. And that is the one that DLS has recommended being ultra conservative with because it's going to disappear at some point in time.
I agree. But just to clarify,
Is it
cannabis
thirty?
tax line item, that revenue is collected at the time of sale, and it's 3% surcharge added to the product that then flows into us.
Correct.
And
Similar
right,
to
and
the
right
meals
now,
tax.
we've received 2 quarterly payments.
Correct.
We'll only receive 3 this year, just because of the timing of how it happened.
Probably, yes.
And we're already at 58,000 with 2.
Correct.
So divide that by 2, multiply by 3, you're above 75.
Correct.
Now, my question is on the overlay. Do we really need to bump it up?
Let me go back into the DLS website and look at the history.
It looks like we were doing pretty good at 100,000. And then we went to 120, and now this budget's bringing us to 125.
But we didn't know what was left in there.
Right.
So if there's still 100,000 left in there,
And you put
That
another
wasn't-
125, that brings us up to 2.
right, so we might not need to put all of that in there. That's what we talked about last.
Right.
What's going on here?
Is that what happened Thursday?
it's in the revenue sheet.
2 days. And who else be here? Not be here. Be here.
Right. So while we're figuring that out, if we don't make any changes, and if we leave cannabis at 75, we leave the meals and excise, I'm sorry, vehicle excise where it was, and the ambulance receipts down to 100, is that right?
I think he'd already made that change.
He'd already made the change, right? So the total estimated revenue right now, for anybody listening, is $19,042,629. So just taking a look at the overlay amount, just to see if that's something that should be modified.
I thought when I looked on the state website, it showed us that we had a balance of 101
This is basically the same.
in that account.
Oh,
So if we had that, does that mean we don't?
We only need to get to 125, and that means we only need 24,000.
Right.
For fiscal year '22, we had an overlay balance available of $147,000. Our 5-year average on abatements is $76,000. Overlay balance available in excess of overlay balance needed, $71,500.
So any 71.5 or north would be acceptable.
Yeah. And then it says total potential future liability is 120,000.
Right, so even if we book, say we take the difference between 71 and 120, do 170 for simple math, right, that's $50,000. We could change that line item to negative 50,000 and then increase the bottom line by 75,000.
Rather than 125, right?
Well, we didn't know what the total abatements were this fiscal year, though, do we?
No,
We
I'm
were
just-
gonna find that. We don't have that,
No, I didn't ask that question.
because abatement applications were due for real estate February 1st.
And
so they
I
would've-
do know we have one large one out there because Eversource is starting to do the same thing to us that they did to many other communities.
Well, they lost in Springfield.
What's that?
They lost in Springfield, of course, you just take judicial notice of it.
Yeah, but for 10 years, they hung them out to dry, so.
So rather than a negative 125, can we change that to negative 75? Is that what you're saying?
I might go down to 80.
So negative 80 versus negative 125?
I'd say somewhere between 80 and 100. The 125, I would say, is high.
So that gets us 19,087, 629? Yes, maybe.
Take your word for it.
You're testing my Excel skills. They're usually pretty good, but never know.
I noticed Bradley's over there taking notes.
Yeah, that's right. But 19,087, 629, if we move that down to 80,000 from
Right, so move the overlay to negative 80.
negative 80 rather than negative 125.
So was that 70?
Increase the deficit.
Does that leave us 70 additional?
75, because it's budgeted at 125 right now.
Yeah, how about that?
75.
Yeah, we were at 142, and now we're at
Right, right, right.
Heck.
132 or whatever we were at. Okay, so 19,087, 629 is our potential revenue. Yeah? So,
87.
okay, oops, I just lost that. Gosh. Okay. All right.
And then my only other question, and I'm thinking the answer is yes, but Ed, when you did the review to adjust the ambulance receipts from the 200 to 100, you did an analysis of what's actually been collected and all that, and you think that's the spot for us to be in?
It's 45
I
difference it
think we
was.
might be able to push it up a little bit more if
And then we're at
need be,
87.
but yeah, I'm very comfortable at
45
100.
difference.
All right, and that 100 coming in includes the 68,000 and change needed for the debt payment?
Right, so you'd
So 32.
technically be actually, you know, putting less towards operating expenses this year than we have in the past, because it would include that 68,000.
And am I correct that that 25,000 that we moved in during the special town meeting, if come June 30th, we haven't spent all those funds don't go out to free cash, they go back to ambulance receipt funds?
They came from ambulance receipt funds. Yes, we'd have to make sure of that accounting. You are correct.
Okay.
Of course, the hard part of that is where did we spend the ambulance receipt funds?
Well, the voters voted for wages.
Yeah.
Yes, but
Yes,
you
they
also,
did.
you also have a baseline that goes nowhere. It's not specific, is what I'm saying. It can be used towards wages, it can be used towards expenses, and what have you, so.
So as of July 1st, there will be at least 100,000 or more in that account.
Correct.
Right, without looking back to what was
Well,
unspent.
just to make sure all the
Yeah.
transfers have been
Right.
made and,
Additionally, the receipts for any fiscal year are right around 200,000.
Okay, So, go
So,
ahead.
Chris,
Yes.
did you say we're like 19,100,000?
19087.
19087, 625, it's $45,000 difference, so instead of the minus 125 in the overlay, we put in a minus 80. So it's
Right, so we'd increase that bottom line by 75,000.
a 45 is what I got, what changed?
By 75, but then we'd also decrease it by if we're making a 10th.
Yeah, then we
I
take
forget if we're adjusting cannabis down by
Well,
10,000.
No,
With
No, we
with Chris's number, that does not adjust
I
cannabis
didn't adjust the
down.
cannabis or anybody.
Okay.
If we adjust the cannabis down, it's 10,000. I had done that, and it was $10,000 less than the number Chris just came up with.
Right, that's what I had too.
Okay, so instead of, sorry. So instead of 80, hang on,
75 to 65.
It comes in at $19,077,629.
okay.
$629.
Okay, and that's putting cannabis down from 75 to 65.
Correct.
Right.
And the overlay
And the
from a
overlay.
negative 125 to a negative
Okay,
80.
gotcha. All right, so 190.77, okay,
19,077,629.
got it. Okay, let's use that figure then. Sounds like a good, nice, round number. Okay, all righty. So with that as our revenue projections, let's take a look at where we are with some modifications I guess you've made in the budget since the other night. And I know there's some yellow cells up there, so maybe scroll up and you can fill us in where there might have been
You
some.
won't have any yellow cells on Bradley's spreadsheet.
Well, I do, right there.
Well, no.
No,
well,
no.
Yeah.
No,
that's-
in the far column, we do.
That's just
Different code.
that we don't have a linked account there.
Oh, there's no account to link it, okay. I was wondering what those equaled, okay. All right.
So all the yellow on the budget one on our copy that we got today, are they no longer?
They're not in his original spreadsheet. I will tell you as we go down
Okay.
his numbers where they are, though.
Are we going down more or less?
Let's start at the top, yeah.
Right.
Under general government, we're in the green column, yeah?
And before we start, what's the variance that we're working with?
Okay, thank you.
300,000?
Well,
No,
no.
not in the green column.
I changed mine, it's,
Wait a minute.
Oh, the wish list is 107? 107,074.
Yep.
Before we start, what is our timetable here? Is the hope that we come up with a balanced budget tonight? Do we wait until Thursday's combined finance meeting? What's our plan?
Did you say it was one?
Is this just another, like,
107.
attempt to,
I think this is an attempt to get us closer.
Closer, okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the fact that really technically the
That changed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Finance Committee can't participate tonight
Right.
is to
Okay.
074.
try to work to finish it up on Thursday night with what was posted as a joint meeting.
Okay. All right, let's see,
But
yeah, go ahead.
that being said, under our current deadline, that is the deadline.
That is the deadline. I mean, that is,
Short of moving the town meeting.
yeah, exactly, which, I mean, I will say, that thought has crossed my brain, but, yeah.
Yeah, Chris did ask me about that today, and I checked with legal, and it is possible we would have to have it by the end of June, but it is possible to move the annual town
I just
meeting.
I was worried about how far apart we are still with what we've got to make for decisions, so I asked Ed to check into that, as to whether there was a reason that we could possibly even change it from May 3rd. So they did say that we do have latitude for both May and June. Definitely has to be done before the end of June. So that's the only wiggle room that we have.
So you think just process-wise, we're gonna go through this, line by line or section by section, talk freely, make discussions? I know finance can't take any votes and they haven't presented theirs yet, but the hope would be if we make some sort of adjustments, like notes are made on both sides, so that it might expedite Thursday night's meeting, joint meeting.
We have a PPP meeting
I think that's gonna get canceled,
Okay,
but yeah.
all right,
Right now, there's a meeting posted for Thursday at 6:30, I saw.
right. Okay,
Can that
so,
be moved to 6 or not?
I think it's too late now.
Okay, all right, never mind.
Sorry. Okay, so I'm looking at the spreadsheet that Bradley sent us by email today, which has some yellow lines in that green column, yellow cells, rather. So the email you sent us this afternoon, that's all we're working from, is that? So like under employment advertising, for some reason, that $500 in budget line 1 is highlighted yellow, right? Does everybody see the
Yep.
same thing?
Yes. It's not up there, but yes, in our copy.
So let's be sure we're all in the same copies here, guys.
I mean, that's pretty much
Yeah.
unchanged.
Right. So the ones that we have highlighted in that yellow, in the budget, FY '23 Budget 1 column, which is currently green. So we have employment advertising at 500 highlighted, administration expenses 1,500, photocopier lease and supplies at 4625. All three of those are highlighted yellow, and audit 36,000 highlighted. And principal assessor.
Yeah, let me try doing it this way, because I
That
don't
was-
seem to have that file on either one of these flash drives, so let me see if I can read the shadings.
But do you not have it on the email you sent somewhere?
Yeah, I've got it on the shading. So, yeah, the first one that I highlighted, and then these can be either from my thoughts that the select board or the finance committee had at previous meetings, what have you. But, yes, the first one in that budget 1 column, and these could be negative or positive, was the employment advertising at $500, and the comment came from the finance committee that that may not be enough for the number of positions we may be trying to fill next year.
Okay. Could I ask, Bradley, would you mind, if you've got some level of master spreadsheet there, like over in the AT column, if you could make some notes as we go through these, because we're not going to remember this, and we're not going to get, I don't feel like sitting through 3 hours of TV to remember what I said. So if you would just put a little note under the 500 or something that possibly, whatever, I don't know, possibly too low, need to increase possibly? Did we have a rough idea of a figure? Is that?
Yeah, I'd probably, if you were going to think about going up in this, I would probably think about going up to the wish list column of $1,000.
And is this based on the, what we've done before with Indeed? Is that why we're thinking some of this?
Correct. And Indeed is not inexpensive. I've
Right.
seen some of these in Indeed be, it depends on your number of applicants. Could be $300, and some of the department head ones, it could be well over $1,000, so.
Okay.
What was the rationale for the select board expense going up? Some departments had no increases and other ones had increases, but I don't understand why.
We had some for the minutes, but that might have been a
That's a
separate
separate
line.
line.
That's
Separate
separate.
line.
For 6 hours.
I mean, my understanding at this point is we're trying to lower
Yeah.
expenses.
I don't know, I think I probably put it in there for conferences or something. I don't know what I put in. I don't remember, honestly.
Well, I'll put it this way, as to this point in time in beginning or middle of April, that account is now at zero.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we've,
Yeah, so, I mean, if you wanted to
Because we move
do,
money
if you had
over.
to do any plaques or anything,
Yeah.
like that, you do not have that ability.
you don't have it. Yeah,
But-
the
but-
last expenditure report, it was already at like at 1,200, and that's before the meeting we all attended in East
Correct,
Hampton.
exactly. And the biggest parts of this is like $910 goes towards our
Selectmen's association.
Maya membership.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's $210 goes towards our subscription to the newspaper. The tax hearing, I think, is another couple $100, so.
I mean, we could lower it a couple hundred, but I don't think I'd leave it at 14 that it was last year, because we've already spent all that, but, I don't know. We can put a question mark there if we want to come back to it. The other was on the minutes, that's Kathy's noting our minutes.
Correct, that's with basically the new request for minutes of under 4-hour meetings staying at the $60 per meeting, and anything 4 hours or over being at $80.
Okay, that gives me a good timeline, thank you. I'll set my watch. All right, so then let's just go down to whatever you had shaded then, that shows as yellow for us. So admin expenses, 1,500.
And, yeah, I'm due to renew my Massachusetts procurement certification, so I had put in extra money to do that this year. If you need to cut somewhere and want to cut that back to the $900, that's fine. I'll just pay for it out of my own pocket.
Yeah. Let's try to avoid that until the absolute very end here. So we know that there's a cost to be incurred there. Okay. Let's just understand what the shading ones were, and then we can come back and discuss where we think we could pull out anything. Photocopier lease and supplies, 4625.
Yeah, and if you remember from the last meeting, we were going to ask for an article that would allow for a 5-year lease for both the police department and the town hall, and if we do that, this would be able to come down a little bit.
And, yeah, right. So this is one of the things that came up at our cost efficiencies meeting, to try and figure out how we could consolidate things. So this would be town hall and police on the photocopier, right? Okay. All righty. Next shaded one.
Would be the independent audit, and I do have the quote for fiscal year 21's audit, not fiscal year 22. I'd have to go back and double check that, but that should be about a $5,000 or $6,000 reduction.
So could we put in 30,000 rather than 36, or?
I will check what we got quoted and put in I'll have Bradley put in the correct number.
Well,
Go ahead, John.
I'm confused.
Yeah, remember, this is, the audit for this year is the one that is gonna go up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The audit for
And then we
21.
have budgeted 21,500, we've already spent $5,000 of that. I'm guessing on the current work that's being done up there. All right, so there's 16,500 left in that account.
But they wanted 36 for fiscal 22's audit, not
Right.
23's audit.
Right.
Oh, so 23 if we sign a multi-year. we
Right.
get a
It would-
discount
it would-
for the
it would-
second year.
Right, it
It's
would
down to
actually be
like
fiscal year
26,
22's
if I remember
audit.
correctly. It went from 21 to 26, about.
Fiscal year 21 audit, the quote is the 36,000. The fiscal year 22 quote is somewhere between 30 and 31 from my memory.
So we can lower that to
30 and
31.
31, no, it was a 20-something. It was only 1 year that it was in the 30s, almost positive,
Well, we'll have to come back and
yeah.
figure that. Okay. Next highlighted one.
What are we reducing it for now? Are we?
31?
I will find what the actual quote is and have Bradley put that number in there.
At most, maybe 5,000 or something to lower it, maybe 5.
Yep.
Okay. Principal assessor.
Yeah, I know that they were looking for a 40-hour a week position, and I see that both the budget 1 and the budget 2 is at the 60,000, which makes me believe that that's for a 40-hour work week. If the board were going to do that, I would strongly recommend that whatever you do, whether it's go to 40 hours a week there or make an interim attempt to get to 35 or 36 hours a week, I would strongly recommend that the select board look at including the 3 internal departments of the finance team, of the principal assessor, the treasurer collector, and the town accountant in that same change, so that they can work together on the reconciliations and what really needs to be done at their level, so that does get done.
So right now, this is a 31 or 32-hour position or
My
something?
memory is it's 31.
31.
But I think that the discussion that we had with the assessors was it might not necessarily be a 40-hour-a-week position, but it's going to be a salary position, and this is the job parameters. And previously, there was someone in there that worked 37 and a half hours, but she did it in 4 days, so it wasn't adding another day. So I think that we were leaning more toward that than trying to make some people 40 hours but in order to get a qualified person or someone that's going to have, to attract someone, you're really trying to attract an assistant that's got some experience from another town that will come and take on Southampton, that you're not going to do it for less than 60, whether it's 4 days a week or 5 days a week, doesn't matter. You need to meet that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that we were definite that it had to be a 40-hour a week for 60,000.
I understand the importance of the parity here with the finance team, but I really feel like this should be an assessment of our finance needs as a town. I think to raise up one and then say, well, the other two positions need it, I just feel like there should be a little bit more of a comprehensive assessment of, based on the size of our town, the number of, tax bills, the number of properties, the number of whatever, then, that we're not, with there's 351 communities in the state, I mean, it just doesn't feel like our little group should be making this decision, frankly.
Well, I think there have been surveys done as far as, the other, at least when I was in the position, I know that, there's a survey that's done every year that you can compare. Similar sized towns, there's not that many in Western Mass to compare to, but again, just looking at the assessor's position and trying to get someone in here to fill it, which is critical to our revenue going forward, we need to fill that position.
Correct.
And so, I mean, I think that we were in agreement that it needs to be, the 60,000 is not out of the range for sure, because there are assistants making 60,000
Yeah.
or
I
close to it.
I agree with you, but I just wanted to make sure that we're not deciding this based on, well, if one person does it, then the other two should also, like, it should be based on a little bit more than that, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, but I think the idea, I mean, I think we had said, and we didn't manage to do it last year, was that I think we thought we had a trio as a finance team, those three
Right.
offices, right? And that we needed to have them working more closely together so that things were done on time and we didn't have the backlogs that we have and
And we're
whatever.
maximizing, what we're supposed to get for income.
Correct, and also maximizing those professional skills so that they're not just stuck, Thursday night or Friday morning if they decide to come in, just doing photocopying. They're not doing clerical work, they're doing
Right.
the real bulk of the work
Right.
that they need to do to make the job
Yep.
happen, right? I mean, if this went to even just, half a day on Friday, for example, rather than a 40-hour week, I mean, that could allow somebody to come in and do whatever they needed to do to kind of catch up for the week
If
on,
it's put out as a salary position, these are your duties, they're
right,
going to be busier times than
right,
others.
correct.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
if some weeks it's not, it's a 35-hour a week, and some weeks it's a 40-hour,
Yep.
but whatever, just
Yeah.
like with the collector and the clerk.
Yeah.
They're elected, so you get the salary, you do the job. It's
Yeah.
not,
Right, I mean, there's a flat amount or whatever amount for your job, and like you said, whether you do it in 30 hours or 25 hours or 45 is
That's the
up to you.
definition of a salaried
Right.
position.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, which right now is not, we're on an hourly basis, are we not?
Well, I think it's a mindset. I think it's a mindset, and part of this goes back to the PPPB manual that only it uses the term hourly because that's something everybody can relate to. If you're on salary, okay, well, this is how much I make a week, I divide that by 40, there's my hourly rate. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
And just to be clear, I know at some point last year, we were confused in terms of whether we were using 52 weeks or 52.2?
Well, our hourly employees, when the budget's done, is based on 52.2.
52.
Salary employees are based on a straight 52-week division of the salary
Okay,
amount.
52.2.
okay, got that, thank you. All right, so, good to know that. All right, where else are we in the general,
Legal.
okay, legal one, next.
The next one, yes, and this, I had included that $5,000 request from the planning board for the review of any zone changes they brought forward to have legal review on them, and I had also included about $4,000 for the bylaw review committee also, so. So that has the potential to be reduced.
Looking at the last expense report, I saw around 12,000 something, maybe 12,005 or something already spent, but I'm sure they're late on billing. That's part of the issue with these guys.
That's either through the end of December or the end of January, so they traditionally lag a few months behind.
Are you comfortable reducing that to 30 then, if you just added 9,000 of that on bylaws?
Is it possible too that we could maybe, once our free cash is actually certified, if the bylaws is kind of a one-time thing, or what was the other one? Is it
Planning board.
Planning board?
Planning board zoning
Could we
bylaws.
take that money at town meeting out of free cash to put it in to pay for those legal expenses? Like, because they're maybe one-time expenses instead of building it into the budget?
Would you prefer that over operational stabilization?
Or there's always the undesignated free cash too, because
Yeah.
we put so much, we put so much into OPEB and stabilization,
right.
but then there's a percentage that's left also for one-time
I
expenses.
mean, that might be an idea to take 9,000 and put them aside for, 9 or 10,000 and put it aside just for bylaw review, whomever. That might be an idea. I don't know. I mean, just on the expense report though, the one we have says up to 4,722. We got that a couple weeks ago.
That would be what the report goes through. Doesn't necessarily mean that any of those particular
Still waiting
accounts
for
have
things to
billed
be
through that
posted.
period.
Right. No,
What's
that's what I
that
meant.
contract say for how soon they're supposed to bill after service?
It does not say.
It should.
Okay, so there's a thought. So should we, well, we can come back and figure out if we want to, if we want to make some decisions on these things, but at least that's a discussion. So possibly knocking it down a little bit, but also setting aside maybe up to 10 from free cash or other, right? Only for bylaw review. Okay, it's a thought.
Yeah, I think we should be trying to figure out where else things could be covered if we're trying to close a gap here.
Right, yep, okay. Next, where are we at?
Next one's the town clerk's salary, and what you have here in the budget one is the 2% COLA that the select board told me to add in the wish list. It is what the department head has asked for. I do not know what the select board is thinking at this particular time, but this is one of the positions that I kind of bulleted for what might be over a 2% increase. And like I say, I don't know what you're thinking at this point in time, but I would probably at least suggest to perhaps try to get this to that 46.7, at least over maybe a 2-year period, if possible. And if you split that difference between the two, that dollar amount would be $44,125.94. But like I say, I don't know what you're thinking, but I just earmarked it out of some of the ones that I had looked at that were close from last year that we probably should look at again this year.
I support that. I think last year we tried, I mean, Art said start somewhere, so we did. We started with the lowest paid employees, and then they got lower paid folks also got 2 sequential cost of living increases. So I think this time, I think we talked about trying to get department heads, either through contract or through additional to 2%. I still support that.
I mean, this, if I look at this right, and check my math, but the 46, the difference from 41 to 46 is about a 13% change. So if we got
Yeah, I looked at it a little different, of what was the difference between the current 40,669 and the 41,400,
Oh,
and
I'm
then
sorry.
what was the difference between the
I did the wrong denominator. I'm
40,669
sorry.
and the 46,769, so.
Gotcha, I did the wrong denominator, sorry.
Well, I wanted to ask if there was an error, when we, I don't want to forget, but when we get to senior center director, I wonder if that's accurate.
Okay, we'll get there. Okay, so, all right, so taking the 40,669 and the 46,769, right? I'm hitting a 15% increase request in the wish list request?
Well, right, but we've already budgeted for 2, so it's really 13, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say the 2%'s in there on the green list, right?
No,
So-
it wouldn't be.
So, well, that's where I was,
I would
still at
just,
my 13%.
right, I would just say, I mean,
Never mind.
I'm in favor of looking at all
Yeah.
the wages. I'm not in favor of doing it position by position.
Yeah,
So if we want to take everybody in that unit and look at it, I'm all for it.
yeah.
If we want to back out the people that were adjusted last year, I'm all for it.
Mhm.
But I really don't want to be put in a position to go name by name,
Right,
or
right.
position by position.
Well, and I think we wanted to do, last year we used the Jacob study as an overall guide, and not that it was formally adopted, but we were using it as a guide to see who was not even on the lowest end of the scale. We made some adjustments there. We went as far as we could with the budget money, with the money we had available last year, right, for the budget. And so we could do something similar too, to say, okay, who's
Yeah,
still
I agree,
falling
John.
off?
Yeah.
If we put in the 2% increase again, who's still, got issues? And certainly town
So
clerk is
I know,
one.
I know we're going to get to it afterwards because Ed passed it out to us, but
Yeah.
I did an exercise that was provided to all you guys tonight.
Yeah, okay. We'll come,
It just gives the whole picture to look at, and then we can adjust as needed.
okay, well, we'll come back to it
Once we
then.
find some revenue.
Yep, okay. Yeah. But I think in general, we recognize that that's one that needs adjustment, so,
Okay.
all right. Conservation Commission wages, so that we knew was a new request.
It's a new request. I basically highlighted it only on my thought that this is a new position. I think we should take care of existing employees first before adding new positions, that's all.
Expense report,
And do we think that this could be something that we could use ARPA funds for?
see what they expect.
Yes, I do. Just keep in mind, that's a 2-year bridge, basically.
Right.
It's what, Ed?
A 2-year bridge.
Okay. All right. Next, Open Space Committee, that's brand new.
$1,000 left.
It's a brand-new request. I know before I got here, with some of the budget crunches, the select board had gone through and basically put all the boards and committees at $0, basically. So, again, that's a new request. I basically highlighted it as a possibility to be reduced.
Yeah, well,
I believe you haven't highlighted because you didn't know if it should be there on that area. It was on the chart, on the list.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point.
yeah. I mean, I know right now, for a lot of the work they do, I mean, they're just taking stuff out of pocket. When they do their mailings and all that, it's all out of pocket. So,
And there was some request to CPA, though. For example, for some of the educational materials have been funded by CPA.
some, yes, yeah, but others, I know that there's been other stuff. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I would generally favor something, whether we can afford that or not, but. Planning board expenses.
Planning board expenses, they had requested $15,000 for a consultant to update their zoning bylaws. They have been using their revolving fund in the past. That has gotten to the point of depletion where there's not much money left in there for this, so they had requested that. I highlighted it again because, it is a new request, and whether the board wants to look at that as for, potential reduction or putting it back to 0, or looking for it for possibility of ARPA funding, that's why it's highlighted.
I mean, this, to me, if this is basically for their consultant and reviewing their zoning things right now, that is, I guess I see it as a short-term well, I know they've been working on the zoning board, zoning
They had a
bylaws for a while.
consultant
but I
before
mean,
this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long their contract is for, but I'm thinking it's a little bit more finite that could be folded into an ARPA request without too much.
Yeah, I mean, it is short-term.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a one-time cost, sort of. I mean,
Ed, why is the revolving fund here?
Yeah,
It,
that's what,
somehow they had filled that in, and Bradley put it in there. It should be reduced to zero.
yeah.
That should be a zero?
That's why it's highlighted,
the revolving fund one?
Well,
yes.
Because the revolving
Planning board
fund's not
revolving
part of
fund.
the general
it's
fund.
not part of the general fund.
Right, that
Right.
should be zero, yeah. On both columns, yeah.
So is this 15,000 going to get the job done, or is this just
Well, that's a question, how,
for
yeah.
this year and then it'll take
I would
next year?
imagine it's the
No.
same as the bylaw reviews.
I know, but we're not putting a budget in. We didn't put a request in for any funding.
But this would get
I'm
them,
just asking.
They've already spent
So you're saying it's
5,000.
an ongoing process and this is not a one-time
This consultant.
$15,000?
It's a consultant. I mean,
Yeah,
isn't
for
it?
this, for
That's-
this contract.
yes.
This is a new
I-
consultant. They would
I
have been working
would
with a
seriously
different
doubt they
one.
can go through their entire zoning bylaws and have them all done for $15,000.
But that said, if for the first year, because this is the first time they're asking for this money to come out of the general
yeah,
fund.
Correct.
Yes.
right? It's been out of their own
yeah.
fees. So potentially for the first year,
We could,
well, I'm assuming it's a one-year consultant contract.
we could tide them over for the first year with
If
ARPA
it-
money,
if it-
maybe.
If it's a one-year contract, and then, that allows them to
Bill-
For
replenish
June
their.
30th, 2022,
Yeah.
Sorry?
to the end of the fiscal year.
This fiscal year?
Yes,
Oh,
Then what's the $15,000 request for next fiscal year for?
for the upcoming. So it ends June 30th, 2022. So they're requesting the money to begin
To sign a new
on July
contract.
1st.
A new
To
contract.
sign a new
A new
contract?
contract.
So it'd be a new annual contract as of July?
Yes, and it would be going up $10,000 because this contract's for 5,000.
But it was never requested in the general fund. It was always paid by the revolving.
Yes.
Right,
So it's a newer position.
yeah. So, I mean, if there were a way to maybe think about this as, I know it's ongoing, but,
a bridge.
yeah, exactly. Thank you. I was looking for the word, transition, whatever. Yeah. To look at as a sort of a stopgap measure, to maybe take this out of ARPA instead of the general fund, do it for the year, allowing them to build up their revolving fund again,
Or free cash.
or
either way.
something.
Mm-hmm.
That might be a strategy.
Yeah, because it is a 300% increase, right?
Yeah,
The
from
expiring
five,
contract is
from 5 to
5,000.
15, right. Okay, all right. Good discussion, thank you. New contract. July. All righty. Next, let's go down to the next. Keep on, what's the, no, under, oh, that must be why. The gas and electric one has got this weird purple thing on mine. Yeah, what does the purple mean?
We're considering changing the name.
Oh,
Oh, the name of the account?
alrighty. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's so difficult to know what we're really spending on gas and electric. I mean, you know, until we keep on getting all this cow power accounts somehow, you know, reconciled, I don't know how we actually really know what we're spending and how we could
They've gone
save
through
better.
21, so now Bradley will start doing
Yeah.
22 and get it caught up.
Good, okay. That'll be fun.
So, what do you, they've gone through 21 and allocated the correct charges to the correct accounts?
Correct.
And presumably, was that done in 20 and 19 as well?
Probably not 19, because I don't think we actually had them in 19, but it would have been done in 20 also.
So at the end of next year, we'll be able to see 3-year trends
Yes.
for budget purposes.
They were thinking about changing the name,
Of the line?
I guess. Yeah. Okay. Alrighty. Technology equipment, 11.5. Oops. That looks like
Yes,
it's straight
and-
lined across, though.
And Vicky was right at the last meeting. Could reduce this by the amount that is in the capital expense for computer replacement, because I forgot that was there, so.
So reduced by how much, Ed?
I'm going to have to go back and check, because I think there's one computer out there that we've encumbered funds for, but I believe it's somewhere around $3,000, if I'm not mistaken.
And this was for desktops, right?
Correct.
And so we do still have some desktops that are not on, I mean, they're not updated, or they need either new desktop, or they need to get up to at least Windows 10 or something.
Well, yeah, some of them are Windows 7, will have to be brought up Windows 10. Some are a Windows 10, however, they're on Windows 10 because the hard drives were updated and not the entire computer, so, you know, they're still 6 and 7 years old, so.
Yeah. So
And
this,
those will also need to be updated to Microsoft 365,
right.
which is allocated somewhere else.
So just thinking back on the various things the tech committee's been working on, there's no other equipment things that
Well-
they've put forward to us?
Well, not that I can think of, that aren't already in here.
Yeah, we've
like
got the phones
printers
dealt
or
with
whatever.
already.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, so that might be a possible reduction somewhere there. Okay. Coming on down, where are we at?
Any thought on how much? The reduction in technology?
I'm going to have to go back and
Maybe like-
take a look at that account and see what's in there.
Yeah,
Like I say, my memory is like somewhere around $3,000.
Is encumbered?
Either that's left, or I'm going to have to check on the encumbered. It might be a little bit less than that.
okay. All right, so that might get a few bucks here and there. Okay. All right, moving on down to anything else that's shaded here?
The next one would be the police chief's salary. And that one, what I'm going to, we've basically come to agreement with the chief on a new salary, but his contracts run out on May 4th of every year, which means that we don't have a full fiscal year in there. So at that point in time, we have to scramble and go back in and remember that we need to transfer funds in there to pay for him for the rest of the fiscal year when the next year increase kicks in. So for this one, I asked Jen if she would calculate out what the 2% was for this year, and then for that period of May 4th through June 30th, what the 2% would be for that year. And I don't know if I've got it here or not. My memory is it turns out to be like $112,000 and some change, but yeah, 112, 286, 29, and that's what I would recommend putting in there, and then the fiscal year would be taken care of for when that extra 2% kicks
So
in
that's-
for
Can you say
that
that
period.
number one more time?
112.
112, 289,
You said 286.
112, 286, 29.
So that's basically 2% from September to May, whatever, and then the additional 2% on that number from May until the end of June.
Correct,
And that's 112, 286, 29.
correct.
We should make a note the next time that contract comes up to ask them to extend it till the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, I've thought about that also.
Okay, so instead of the 111, it should be 112.
All right, so an increase of $351.
All right. Moving on down to
Building inspector.
building inspector salary.
And that's just a note to myself, I want to go back and double check that, make sure the calculations are correct on that particular one.
Okay. Any questions so far as we keep on going? All right, down to school, education, vocational tuition.
Vocational tuition, you know, like I said at the last meeting, it might be a little bit low. I'd feel much better with another student allocation in there, but that's $18,000. So I'm not sure how the select board feels about that or not.
I think we leave it as is, and if need be, we go to free cash.
What's the difference between?
Well, the flip side of that is, don't forget, the select board authorized 2 individuals to go late this year because there was
Right.
money in there.
Right.
If that comes up next year, the answer could be, no, it's already overspent,
Yeah,
so,
Well, the money was there. It was an easy one.
yeah.
yeah. So it might be 18,000 shy, is what you're saying, if there is
Right,
another
which
student?
we'd have to find money during the year to,
Okay.
How many students does the figure represent, the increased figure represent?
It's a
I'd have to go
change-
back and check the sheets.
it's a Change of 735,000. Or no, wrong.
No.
No, that's what's been spent so far. Sorry, never mind.
Yeah.
I take that back, sorry.
It's a change of about 65,000, I think.
65, maybe.
So what, 4 students, something like that?
Yeah, roughly, a little bit. Maybe 4
And it
students.
depends, well, it
look and see
also,
how many are
yeah, it also
graduating and-
depends on how many are
It's
graduating.
3 to 4.
Yeah, somewhere like that. Okay. And then, next, Public Works.
Yeah, I just highlighted because we were talking about doing a contract with the highway superintendent, and this was another of the positions that I had earmarked that, in my opinion, was low on the charts. Then the one after that would be winter roads wages. Randall had put $165,000 in here, which is like a $24,000 increase. This is one of the areas that we don't necessarily have to go up on. We can't go down on it, or we'll never have the ability to declare our own deficit spending again. But just wanted to make the board realize that, and just to let you know, and my thoughts, if you did reduce this to the same amount as this year, or, you know, decide to say, okay, we'll add $1 to it or a couple dollars to it, I would actually think or recommend, because we always look internally in the department to balance off the deficit spending for transfers first, that perhaps instead, even though it does have a $20,000 increase to it already, maybe look at adding that to road machinery expenses, which we always overspend with our older fleet, and perhaps the general highway wages expenses, which goes to road work.
Are you referring to the line below it, Ed, the 122,000? Where are you
That's
suggesting?
winter road expenses, which is the two that basically constitute what we can deficit spend on, are the combination of winter roads wages and winter roads expenses.
Right, but you just said that we usually take it from the department, and usually we turn to, are you saying the return to the line below it?
No. I would take a look if that was reduced to, instead of just reducing it, recommend putting most or all of that into either and/or a combination of road machinery expenses, which is on the top of that page, or general highway expenses, which is on the bottom of the previous page,
Okay.
which was 148, 621, 85. But again, that's my thoughts. Again, for the most part, you don't have to go up on, we're not required to go up on winter roads wages. But like I say, if that goes deficit, we'll be looking for one of these other line items to take it from.
Right. So we had budgeted 141, that was the approved budget, right, last year?
Correct.
And again, even though the reports are not yet up to date, perhaps, the expense reports, there's 102,000 spent so far.
Yeah, I think from my memory, I think we're about 4,000 in deficit between the combination of the two.
Between the two, okay, I'm just hard about that one, yeah.
Yeah, no, the two can be looked at together. So once you've overspent the combination of those two on either one, that's when you're in deficit.
Right. No, the winter roads expenses, I mean, again, based on that last report, yeah, it's already a deficit of 46,000.
Yeah, which I'm not surprised at, because
It's 168,805.
it was less of a snow year and more of a, shall we say, sleet and ice event, which means instead of just plowing, you're adding materials, so you're adding to the costs.
So if I'm getting you right, we could not do the 165, 215. We could leave it at around, round it up to 145 or something.
Or 142 if you
or
wanted to.
something. But then that difference you want to still have available
It's a-
within
It's only
that category.
It's only my recommendation,
Okay, no, but
or my thought,
I'm just
shall I
trying to
say.
repeat what I heard.
Yeah, yeah, you got it.
Okay,
I mean, you, the five of you were the ones that get the vote, so. I'm identifying it. What happens to it is up to you.
okay. Any questions while we're, no? Feel free, I don't want to hog the mic here.
You're doing a great job.
I just want to keep on moving.
Ed, what was the increase at the special town meeting for the tree warden? Was that 7,000 or 8,000?
I think it was 8 maybe.
So it was doubled?
I think it was 8, yeah.
I think we doubled it, yeah. So, yeah, so going from 8 to,
8 to 16.
yeah.
So, just on the, since we're on high, well, never mind, you only want to talk about the highlighted numbers? All right.
Huh?
I'll leave.
Well, yeah, okay. We're almost done with this, I think. Yeah.
Sorry.
Health and Human Services. Okay, the highlighted one here is mosquito control.
I highlighted it only because of the fact that at last year's annual town meeting, I know a lot of people were asking if we really wanted to belong to the mosquito patrol control program. So that's why it's highlighted.
And is this our third year of it now?
Geez,
think it
I
is,
believe
isn't it?
so.
Must be, right?
Yeah,
And the
it's
reason
at
it doesn't
least
show
the
up in the
third year.
previous year, because it was a donation from the Rowland family to
Right.
fund it
Yeah.
the first
Right.
time around.
Mhm.
And there were a lot of questions last year at the town meeting because there wasn't any representative to speak on behalf of it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, last year there was a lot of news out there about various towns that had opted out of the mosquito control program. And I think the challenge was, if I remember the discussion, was that if you did that, you had to present some level of an alternative
Correct.
by a certain deadline, and that had not happened, so we really didn't feel overly comfortable just wiping it out at that
The
point in
deadline was
time.
also very tight.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So that's in there at least, but, yeah.
It's in there.
Yeah.
Like I say, I just highlighted it to
Yeah,
So,
remind the board of that.
yeah, I mean, we're 3/4 of the way through the year, they haven't invoiced us yet.
I can tell you that, and Bradley can confirm this, it is on this warrant right now that will be sent out, it's being processed, and the checks will go out on Thursday.
Gotcha.
okay.
I'll speak up in behalf of it. I mean, the incidence of, insect diseases is, we have a farming community, we have a lot of livestock. I just feel like it would be not a good thing for us to opt out of this right now.
And just as we're going through these, so in all of these that are wages, I just want to be sure, in the green column, you've already put in the 2% for that basic budget column, right? A 2% COLA?
For what?
For any of the wage, so like health agent,
Yes, correct,
whatever,
yes,
For any wage not associated with the collective bargaining agreement.
right,
correct,
yeah, okay.
exactly,
So that 2% is already in there, okay.
yes.
Based on the Jacob study last time, when the select board raised up certain people that were way off the scale, one of them was the senior center director. So I'm wondering if that figure is accurate, because that was a pretty, well, yeah, it is an increase, pretty good increase from 21 to 22, but somehow I thought there was less of discrepancy between library director and senior center director than this budget presents.
Well,
What are you looking at, 2021?
in the expense report, the original budget is 33,224 for the COA director, and
They're very close.
library director 46,029.
I mean, the hourly rates.
And,
Yeah,
yeah,
but-
and,
2569 versus 2506.
Okay, so this
The
reflects the
number of
difference in
hours.
hours then?
Or also,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
And there's-
That makes sense.
Because that COA works, what, 20?
COA
24?
director is, I believe, 26 hours
26 hours.
a week, and
Barbara's
The
at
li-
107 a week.
something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then before I forget, because there's one item on this page that I didn't highlight, but it's another thought I have. Back towards the top of the page, the third line is MS4 Stormwater Management, 28,875. This has been taken out and funded with free cash in the past. I'm thinking this year, that would have the potential of being possibly funded through ARPA as a, under loss of revenue, as an alternative to reduce that amount.
I think it was operational stabilization last year.
It's
MS,
under highway.
138.
I was gonna ask about that.
Yeah,
Okay, so-
I think it was operational stabilization, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, it was not in
We did
general.
pull it out last year, that's true. Yeah, okay,
Even though that's not the advice of the highway superintendent.
yeah, yeah.
Just wanted to call that to your attention.
Mhm.
Well, if we're gonna close $100 and something thousand.
We're gonna have to do
And we
something.
haven't even included some of the contract stuff.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to move out whatever we can.
Okay, I don't see any other,
That would be it for at least items that I either had thoughts on or had remembered thoughts or comments from either the finance committee
Yep.
or the select board members.
okay.
That's like 72,000.
Is it, okay, I haven't done the math as I went along.
What I,
Yeah, okay,
the only number I changed, as a hard number that I changed, was the first one, what was it? The 30,
the
the
audit,
legal number.
oh, the legal,
Yeah, you brought it down to 30? Or you didn't?
Uh,
Because it was 35.
yeah, and the, like we said, the
Yeah,
audit
so
number.
no, the audit number.
Yeah.
The audit number, I went down to 31.
Yeah.
All the others I just made, I put in the column, like plus and minuses, everything that we talked about, just to see what it would equal to.
Yep.
And,
Negative 56.
Huh?
I get a negative $56,000 adjustment.
well, if you took out the 28,875 too, I came up with, and the conservation,
Oh, I didn't,
I
okay.
took that out because it could be ARPA
Mhm.
What
or,
about the planning board? Did you take that
Planning
out?
board too?
I didn't take the planning board out. Anyway, we were at 72,000.
Mhm.
And then by changing the first number, it brought it to a difference, a variance of 101. So then that's 72, so then we're at 28, maybe? And that's not counting the planning board.
Did you reduce winter roads at all? Did you bring down winter roads at all?
No.
Right, so like a $31,000
Yeah,
shortfall.
but that's not talking adjustments for a couple things, like if we're talking contract for the highway super and,
Yeah, but then,
No, but I did
Yeah.
increase, like, I did the small increase on the police chief's line, and
mhm.
there was another one that went up.
but I could take a harder look at this and see if there's some other items in there that we may be able to
Yeah.
back
Oh,
up and do through ARPA.
That included possibly the 3,800, I just was a rough number for the clerk.
Mhm.
And the veteran benefits, is that a real number? Do we know that it's
What's that?
going up $5,000, the veteran benefits?
Yeah, I had asked that too.
I remember talking, I can double check on that, but I remember talking to Jerry, and he was anticipating, he'd been contacted, there were at least one, or possibly two new veterans that may come on the rolls, but I can follow up with him on that.
Okay.
Okay, all right. All right, so these are ones that Ed has kind of highlighted for us. Does anybody else have some other ones in there that were not highlighted that you'd like to raise up? Is that where you were going, John, or that's not where you were
Well,
going?
yeah.
Okay,
mean,
I wasn't sure.
The first is in highway department, and I think it's more a philosophical
Okay,
discussion.
could you just speak up just a little bit, sorry?
The first one's in the highway department, and it might be more philosophical, but right now, they're running with open vacancies, right?
Correct, yeah.
And the likelihood that they're gonna be filled on July 1st, I would say is slim to none, at least at 100% capacity. But we're budgeting as if they're going to be. I realize if we make an adjustment there, then we have to remember we did that next year. But even right now, with this last expense report we have, they've only spent 48% of that line item. And specifically, I'm talking about line 134.
General highway.
Yeah, wages of 225, and it's actually only been 115 been spent, which leaves 110 left over, 48.92% with 3 months left to go in the year.
And please keep in mind that in the next payroll, that the retro for the new contract will be taken out, so you'll have a better picture of it.
Yeah. But, right, I'm just saying, you know,
That's it, yeah, we could find it all.
and then I would say, again, we'd have to decide whether it's worth the exercise or not, but what other open positions are there that aren't gonna be filled on July 1st, and do we give them, 30 days, which is, I can't do that math in my head. I think it's 8%, right? 8 times 12, 96,
Well, or
give or
do-
take.
You know, that's a, I don't know, I don't think that that's a way of doing it that I agree with.
Well, again, I said
Because I
it's a
think that this is,
philosophical
we're looking
discussion.
back all the time to previous budgets, and I just think that that's from an
We-
accounting standpoint, I don't think that's a great practice.
I agree 100%, we should not be looking back at past budgets. We should be looking at actual expense
Right.
lines
Yeah,
for trends, because,
yeah.
Didn't
But
cost
yeah.
anything.
Yeah, somehow I feel like that's
I mean,
It's more of a transfer situation in my mind than to set up a budget, guessing who's going to be filling positions, who might leave, who, I mean, to me, I just feel like that's
because I think we
not
are
something
going,
I'm comfortable
we are
with.
going in our third year, budgeting 100% for a mechanic there. And we know for 3 years we haven't been able to fill
We haven't been able to
it.
get
We're
it.
hoping that with this wage adjustment, we're going to be able to do it.
Correct.
But I heard Ed's recommendation, if we're going to cut those other line items within that department, to leave that money there. I would suggest we're already doing some of that, depending on how deep we want to cut.
There's 3 positions there, right?
Right.
There's a driver, a
Yeah,
laborer, and a mechanic?
but I think there's one thing coming before PPB to fill one of those spots.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'd rather reduce some of the other lines and move if
Right.
if it's necessary.
Especially if there's a potential that the salary is going to increase, for the, that if it stays within the departmental budget, even if it shifts around in lines a little bit.
We
The
used to be-
contract, I mean, it's going to be it's already signed, so I can say that we added a step, we increased, I mean, I think that, I just don't feel as comfortable with that, but I feel
Yeah,
like
they-
we could
they-
reduce
they
some of the other
retained
lines
the
and then do a
salary-
transfer if we
I'm
needed
sorry,
to.
They retained the salary in the wage line for the mechanic, and yet, if you look at the expenses, they also, because they've been sending the vehicles out for repair, they also include that line item,
Right.
as if we were gonna have a mechanic and we're gonna send the vehicles out for
Yeah,
repair at the
right.
same time.
Yeah, so I'm always more
One or the
comfortable
other.
reducing expenses than
And-
people.
Right, and then, this is stretching into the next conversation, but if we net out the winter road adjustments, right, because we need to find that money within that budget, I'm assuming winter deficit spending's over now, or at least will be next week, right? The first day of,
Hopefully.
doesn't it, it ends at some point? You could only,
I mean, technically, it's probably already ended. If that nor'easter had come in and come further east and we got snow or ice, I probably would have made the argument that
Right.
it's a valid expense, but.
but as of right now,
Yeah.
we deficit spent $7,981.
How much is it?
7,981, if you net those two numbers.
Okay.
So there's plenty of money in that budget to absorb it, and then there's plenty of money in that budget on May 1st to fund this audit that we need to do.
Well,
Different subject.
keep in mind, some of that, there's about a $5,000 or $6,000 expense for tie and bond to work on the MVP application plan. It's coming out
Is it
of,
already in here?
well, I'm believing it's going to be coming out of one of these.
It'll be coming out of one of those accounts.
One of those expense accounts to transfer out.
But
for an unfunded, I mean, a person that doesn't exist, the savings that are in there for the wages or the,
Yeah.
whichever one.
Right, but if we signed a contract, we should have encumbered the funds, which means they'd show up in the expense.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that's gone.
You don't do it that way?
No.
But,
Doesn't say I agree with that, but it isn't done that way.
yeah. But, I mean, I hear what you're saying, John,
Yeah.
I think, I'm back on the general highway wages.
Yep.
I think, I mean, it feels like we ought to leave that kind of alone so we know what we're aiming for, even though
I'm
those
okay with
positions
that. Yeah.
are empty. But if we could lower anything else, knowing that we should have, right, some funds to be transferred within the department from those other lines that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? What would be the ones that could be done? I mean,
If it helps at all, the highway retro in the next pay period is supposed to be $10,523.68.
And that's for 9 months, give or take, so take a third of that to get us through the rest of this year?
I'd say that's a good assumption, John.
Is all the other things we didn't go through, debt service, interest, all of that, is that all pretty firm? Employee benefits?
as far as we,
I think there's been a lot of,
What's that?
are all the other three categories that we didn't go through, are they all pretty
employee benefits and debt service and all those, they're pretty
Yes.
firm?
on the mark, yeah.
Yep.
So while we're back on highway, is there something you want to suggest to maybe reduce there a little bit and leave the salary part alone, but, or not? Till we figure it out a little further? Maybe we're not at the point of making that choice yet.
I feel like we could reduce winter roads.
Winter roads,
I mean, we're allowed to deficit spend. I mean, we went from 141 to, I mean, we went up from 41 to 65, right?
right,
That's a pretty good jump.
141 to 165. So if we knock that back down to the 142, like had been mentioned, or something like that, that 23,000 or whatever that would be, could be still within that category to fund
Well, just remember that line item, he only spent 102.
so far,
So far.
I mean,
They're so far.
no, but I mean, if, true, but I mean, if everything's been posted, we don't know it's all been posted, right, in terms of expenses, right? The expense report that we have that says July, you were saying doesn't reflect all the expenses, or it is up to date, except for the legal people that might be billing late.
Well, it's up, yes, correct.
Okay.
Or anything we have not received an invoice for.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah, right.
So, okay, well, at this point, it does look like there's been about 102,000 spent in winter road wages, right?
I wouldn't lower it more than the 142, I don't think.
I don't think we should, no.
You can't, I thought.
Because we wouldn't, we, like
Did you say
Ed
you
was saying,
can't-
you wouldn't get it
You can't
back.
lower it. Did you say-
You can't take those two accounts and lower them.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you could, but then you have to ask permission from the state to deficit spend. It leaves the ability of the town, of either myself or the select board to do that.
Right.
So I'm okay with reducing those to last year's numbers, as long as, because he did deficit spend by $8,000, that somewhere in that budget, we stick $8,000 in. So in theory, that keeps Randall whole. It's a little bit of a shell game, but he's got to find that $8,000 from somewhere else on his budget, which means something needs to suffer. And since we know that was the actual amount that he deficit spent this year,
So you're saying
otherwise, he's
lower-
continuing to cut some sort of service that he needs to do just to make this happen, which goes along with, I mean, you argued it differently than I am, but it's the same point.
Right. I mean, like I say, if you deficit spend, and even if you level fund, theoretically due to inflation, you are taking away some of the services that may go towards road repair, sidewalk repair, guardrail repair. Let's say, if mowing services, whatever, because you keep basically eroding those numbers. So the services that end up going directly to our taxpayer get less.
Right.
It's just a
And-
unique line where there's a little bit more flexibility than other lines.
And I know you've heard it from me before, but probably the only other department other than the treasurer collector, because of the billing and receivable cycle, that touches every one of our taxpayers, whether residents or businesses, is the highway department.
Well, the assessors too.
Correct.
Right, so I would suggest that winter road wages, we reduce that by 24,138.80, which resets it to the budget number.
142? Or back to last year's
That
numbers?
one to 141,076. And then winter road expenses from, actually, no, that one stays the way it is, right, at
It stays
122.
same.
So that's a $24,000 savings, but I would argue or advocate to increase road machinery expenses by 10,000. I mean, even on his actual spend, he's only got $7,000 left in that account.
So you're saying increase road expenses now? Road machinery, rather,
By 10.
by 10?
But I thought the hope is that they'd hire somebody and that those things could be done in-house. Isn't that the whole point of it?
You're still not going to be able to do everything
you
in-house.
won't be able
There's
You know,
going to
but
be,
$20,000 more?
I don't know what's going to
Bumping
break
it by 10,
specifically next
Which
year.
covers the debt. I mean, we can make it 8,000.
It already is up by 20. You want to go up another 10?
I'm trying to make up for the deficit, so that he doesn't have to
It's keeping
rob from
his
somewhere else
budget
within his
whole,
account.
yeah.
Right, keeping the same total dollars in that account, just in different places, correct? Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
So right now you've got,
Right now, you're at 7, you're going from 70,000 to 90,000, and you want to add an extra 10 just because you reduced another line? I don't know, it doesn't make any sense to me. The previous year was 70 also, 70, 70, 90, and you want to go up to 100,000.
I'm happy with 8,000. 8,000 is fine. Bump it up by 8,000. Because the deficit was $7,984.
Based on a $70,000 line, though, right?
No. Winter roads.
Under the winter
Where
roads.
he deficit spent, he deficit spent by $7,984, which means he has to go into his other line items and find something to cut to
Yeah.
move that money over. I'm saying, okay, you did that for this time, Randall. We're gonna increase your overall budget by $8,000. So next year, in theory, if it's the same cost, you'll be held harmless. You won't have to cut anywhere. Because the highway department, much like the police department, the level of detail that those two department heads gave us through the finance side, I have no doubt that there really isn't any extra fluff over there somewhere. Something's just not gonna get done.
so instead of the 90,650, you're suggesting what again, John? Please.
Just up it by 8,000, so 98,650.
So you're taking 138.80 out of winter roads, but you're adding 8,000 to,
So then that's like $16,000 savings.
so that puts us at still
Well,
a variance.
Can someone explain the justification for going from 70 to 90 then?
It's probably in his narrative somewhere.
Well, just because it says 70 doesn't mean that was what was approved, doesn't mean that was what was expended.
Yeah, right
But I still
now,
need justification for why it's going up by $20,000. Is it overspent?
no, not at the moment, I don't think.
So, I just still need to understand why you're adding $8 more to a line that already went up by 20,000. I just haven't seen anything that says that it's,
I'm not on the network,
Overspent.
so I cannot sign into SoftWrite and look at a fiscal year '21 report and see what was spent in '21
Yeah, I know
or
that.
'20.
Right now, road machinery expenses look like, out of the 70,000 budgeted, 63,000 have been spent. so far.
Right. And it doesn't look like we're replacing the street sweeper,
Right.
and maybe we'll revisit the bucket loader, but, and he's still down the pickup truck. And the first snowstorm we had, 3 trucks got disabled. So he needs money for repairs.
Which is why it went up by $20,000.
Okay, so that's a suggestion anyway, to add 8,000 to the
Keeping a running tally.
road machinery expenses.
What's the deficit still?
15,000.
Okay, any others?
So,
Any wish-
Yeah.
outside of highway department,
Yep,
only because I sat through the finance side, some of these positions are having increase with the hours, but they're not flagged. And maybe, for whatever reason. But I know there's a budget 1 request under the Board of Health has an increase of hours. Which I'm not necessarily opposed to, but out of transparency, I just want it noted.
Budget 1,
It is?
going from
It doesn't
49
look
to,
like it.
Right,
49,
they increased 3 hours.
the 49 to
to
50?
35 hours.
The 40,
This would only reflect the 2%
the
COLA
50 is only 2% COLA.
in here.
Yeah, I think that they sent in a separate budget, but I don't think that that's reflected here.
that's the
It is
fall,
not.
I
the
think-
blue column.
Right.
So the wish list is maybe more hours, right?
Well, I guess the question is which one is in here?
I mean, I think,
Donna's correct. They submitted an updated budget sheet to Finance Committee to be incorporated into, so I don't know what the recommendation coming out of Finance is gonna be.
We got a copy of that, too.
so the 50,000 here reflects the 2% COLA like for everybody else.
Correct.
All right. And
Right, I
just,
think the
with the same
wish
hours.
list too, the 58 was the increased hours.
With the
Okay.
same hours, right?
Okay.
Right,
with
yeah.
increased hours, 58. So number of hours currently, or what?
32.
Same. I think what we're budgeting for in this column 1 that we're looking at is keeping it the same as it is.
Mhm.
Correct.
So what we're hearing, if I'm hearing it right, the 58 column, 58,000 represents increased hours.
I believe so.
Yep.
Correct.
And was there a justification for that, or? I mean, COVID's kind of ending, maybe, one hopes. We'll have to look, I haven't seen all the narratives, so I don't know what was put in there. Okay. Any other ones that come to people's minds here that,
Donna, how, are you keeping a running tally? Where are we at now?
Donna,
Yeah,
can
I
you-
just, I don't know what happened to my page here.
yeah, that's what I was hoping we
Oh,
could
yeah.
have a,
So, I can just kind of recap maybe. We had lowered the audit number to 31, or I did. We increased, or we lowered legal by 10,000, because we might take that out of free cash or something as a one-time to pay for. We increased, I didn't have the exact, it was about 3,800 if we increase the clerk's salary, to split the increase over 2 years. Taking away the 19,292 for the conservation wages, possibly using ARPA. Taking away the planning board expenses of 15, possibly using ARPA. taking away 3,000 from technology equipment, which is what Ed thinks is about what's in capital, adding 351 to make the police chief's salary whole for the fiscal year. And then adding 8,000 to the road machinery expenses, but taking away 138.80 to level fund the winter road wages. Subtracting the 28,875 from the stormwater management.
Pulling that out toward ARPA, yeah.
I've got two others.
Let Donna finish up her totals here.
And
see what-
that,
She is.
that left, well, so those total a savings of 88,154.80, and the target I had put the change in the legal in the green column, so the variance was at 101,068, and that's 88,000 of that 101.
So 11.
What did you have, that I?
No,
didn't-
just two, I had two adjustments that you didn't mention.
Mhm.
The first one's up at the top, I put down that we wanted to increase employment advertising by 500.
Oh, I think I missed it.
And then zeroing out the revolving fund, the 98612.
Oh, I did take that out.
Yep.
I did take that out. I didn't put the 500 in though.
The 500 under,
Of
Employee
the
advertising.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then independent audit was at 31, is that right? Or,
Right, yeah.
What's not really,
Shortfall is 13,433.43. Or 10, well, whatever. I'd say the shortfall is 10,000, because there's one employee being adjusted in there, and we know the problem's bigger than that.
yeah. I mean, that, yeah, because we haven't really looked at anybody else that's
Correct.
really on the low end of the
Right.
scale, so.
Right, right, right. Can I ask a question about treasurer collector
Mhm.
wages?
Without adjusting any
Oh,
of the
treasurer collector salary, 5051. Is that,
That has to be.
okay, yeah, that makes sense. I wanted to make sure that adjustment was already made.
So we're about 10,000-ish off without
I think it was
some
11,
other
12.
salary adjustments, is that
11, 12.
Right.
11, 12.
11 to 12.
11 or 12? Okay. Well, not,
So I think we should try to find some more funds that can be shifted over to ARPA or other
Might get there.
no, I guess,
mosquito. I mean, is this going to be forever, the 5,000? Isn't it 3 years?
it's a con.
Well, I mean, if we keep belonging to the program, yes, it's $5,000 every year.
Yeah. We should have a presentation, or the Board of Health should.
Yeah.
Because I know it's not even a state program. I mean, it's a contracted with a state program, isn't it, out of Westfield? It's not coming out of like DPH
Yeah, I
or
can't remember if
anything.
it's out of Westfield or someplace else.
And this currently,
Do you remember who we paid that invoice to, or processed that invoice to?
yeah,
It's okay, I don't either, so.
this currently puts the
But you're
library.
younger and have a better memory than I do.
Yeah,
This puts the library in adequate funding for accreditation.
okay. Then just, if we can go back on the public safety, I just want to be sure I understand. So again, we've talked about fire department wages from 231 to 266, and EMT wages from 220 to 254. So again, based on what I saw on the expense report, I'm not seeing why we need to go quite so high on those,
For what?
for both fire and EMT wages. I mean, I know we've got minimum wage in there, and we've, made some other adjustments for EMT salaries to attract people. But if I look at the fire department wages, okay, it was 231, budgeting, or main budget for '23 is 266, so basically a $35,000 increase, right? So far, expenses are $173,000. And again, we don't know what's coming at us, but assuming that we're relatively up to date on expenses. And then EMT from 220 to 250, so another 30, so a total of around some 60,000 increase, and then wages so far there are 155 actual from the expense report. So I'm fine with increasing, I just don't understand a $30,000 and a $35,000 increase.
But also don't forget that there was a portion of this fiscal year where runs weren't made because of manning and whatever, so those dollars aren't portrayed into this budget. And I believe at the last meeting, John was saying, actually by his calculation of filling out the shifts, he was coming out with actually $15 per hour, just basically meeting the minimum wage.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and the other, I think those wage lines need to be adjusted. I don't know that there's a reduction in there, but when the fire chief was presenting before us, it took us a little time to get there in the conversation, but ultimately, he recommended that 30% of his wages are on fire and 70% are ambulance.
Right.
So even if we're gonna keep those two numbers collectively, the split should be 30-70, 30 to fire and 70 to the ambulance, which then I believe also has a potential cascade effect for additional revenue, because the more that you're
Right.
spending over on the ambulance side, the more
Well,
Medicare
correct.
receipts you can get in.
And that's a little bit, I guess, in the back of my head, was that this budget here reflects the opposite, where you've got higher wages for fire than you do EMT.
Right.
So that's where I was getting confused in terms of what I thought I had understood from the presentation, but also, I mean, if EMT is going to be at 254, then it just seems that the fire should be less than the 266, but.
His original hope, I think, when he came to speak with us before the special town meeting, was to actually have some permanent staff other than an on-call system, but that would require paying benefits.
Correct.
I mean, so to me, that is up for discussion in my head, that's one
Yeah.
place, if we needed to find $6,000 or $7,000, I think we could find something there.
Ed, can you check with him on that?
He sent me a message today about that, and I basically told him that he was too late in the process,
Yeah.
because it adds to benefits, and, I mean,
Oh, I meant know about the distribution of the,
I can check on that.
Yeah,
yes.
because what we're
Be-
saying is
yeah,
that at least
because
the
it-
ambulance has a
yeah.
potential for increased.
Right, revenue generation,
Yeah.
yeah.
But, yeah.
So, I mean, so
If we,
to,
if we add permanent people, are going to, then we'd have to look at increasing our benefit lines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And, I mean, depending on
I think that would
what
have,
people took for medical benefits, that could be
Yeah.
anywhere from 10 to 14,000 apiece, so.
yeah. No, that would have had to be presented at the finance committee, I think. And if that didn't happen, I just think, that even if the numbers end up adding up the same, I think that the distribution probably needs to be more in line with what he told us.
right,
I also think it's worth the exercise. I mean, ultimately, powers that be may decide not to do it. By that, I mean, you can't get 3 votes to make the change. But there's administrative support in those 2 line items. There's a person that's paid to do the payroll,
Yeah,
right? The department head doesn't do it. There's a person that's paid, again, and I said this to him for all the right reasons, that reviews every single medical call,
right.
that goes out to maximize billing. But because of statute and their age, they're prohibited from being on an ambulance. But all those wages in that, which I don't know, is it 10 hours a week or biweekly? Is it 40 hours cumulative together? And there's somebody that's paid something extra to maintain the schedules.
right,
So you hear a lot that there's no administrative staff, but I think there is.
yeah.
You
It's just
so
embedded.
break it out. Unless there's a detrimental reason not to, i.e. you want to get the Medicare reimbursements, but
Yeah.
I think the cleaner that is, the better it will be for an audit.
But you would expect those numbers to be higher on the EMT side.
Right.
not the fire.
Right.
That's not,
That's what I was thinking, so that's why I was asking the
yeah.
question. So if we could at least take a look at that, I mean, I think that one is on the table personally, to take a
Yeah.
look at. Is there anything else? We don't need that many more dollars.
Well, don't forget, we haven't really included in some of these contract
Well, that's true.
and/or,
That's true.
department.
But I mean, to get to the 10, at least to get us that far,
Yes,
and then
yes,
we can
yes,
figure
yes,
out where,
yeah.
what else we gotta do, right?
Is there a way of calculating that?
But-
We just, no, we have to.
Well, it's a determination of how long it takes to do it. I think that anybody reviewing billing is it's gonna be well worth the money.
Mm.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
all coding.
Sure. Anybody see anything else that's kind of hanging out there? You're going to check on the veterans' benefits, but that's probably in there, that 5,000 extra, right?
I'm thinking it is, but I will check
Yeah.
on it.
Okay.
I think anything where we can shift to another source would be a good idea in order to increase department heads.
Mhm. All right. So with that in mind, do you want to look through this again and see if there's anything else that could be pulled out for possibly ARPA or grant aside from ARPA? I mean, I feel like we're
Well, I
we're
mean,
grabbing ARPA very, very quickly here, and we may use it up quicker than we think.
These are small numbers, though, as far as, I mean, I mean.
Yeah, but with the applications we had in, I mean, we've got
Right.
hundreds of thousands of dollars being
But I mean,
asked
in
for
terms of so
already.
far, what we've claimed
Yeah.
as lost revenue, it's really the highest is 28,000 for the stormwater.
Right. Is there anything else that could serve as a,
Oh, is there anything that's a one-time expense? Or at least,
okay, so here's a
So-
question. I know, and I knew, I'm just gonna pick it out, because is there a way that we can figure out ways to reduce our postage, for example? We spend $16,000 on postage, that's $1,050,
supposed to
well,
be a green
a
designated
little over
community.
1,000 a month,
I'm sure probably 80% of those tax bills,
yeah.
right?
So is there, yeah,
And the postage just went up again. Are you guys on a net meter, so you're at
Not
least
on a
getting a
meter?
3-cent discount?
Yes.
we are,
But yeah, postage is going up again, too,
Yeah,
so.
60 cents, I think, yeah.
okay.
Now, Lucy, you were sending out the dog registrations electronically, right? Oh, okay,
Yeah, people can pay them online if they want to, yeah.
okay. No, I mean, good point though, John. I mean, I've been saying that about postage and copying. You think that would be able to shift us more electronic something?
Well,
So I do think, I mean, I don't know if the exercise is tonight, but is there,
I can't hear anything.
you can't, I'm sorry.
is there anything else that's in the budget that's a one-time thing that doesn't need to be there? Short of debt, which we can't use.
You mean to use ARPA funds for? I can go through this again tonight, and
We've already taken out,
I'm sure there's some other pieces that are,
did we already
Here.
take out the open space?
what's that?
We talked about reducing it
Space,
to
the
5, maybe.
$1,000.
What I was saying, shifting it, that be a request. I know we want these committees to have some funds for all the good work they do. I'm just wondering if it can be shifted, that's all I'm asking.
$1,000 or meet them halfway, start off with giving them 500.
Yeah, I think we had
Yeah.
talked about maybe
Something.
reduce it to 5.
Yeah, but that's not what you accounted for, is it, Donna? You didn't do anything with that line?
$150.
Line 50.
How do the other committees, just wondering what they're, like, planning board has a line,
Well, they've had-
conservation, I think they got,
Oh, I didn't touch that.
conservation have a
Reduce
line?
it by
You know, it
500.
would be easier to make these decisions if we had the actual expenses, because we could really, but we don't, unless we cross-reference what they,
Right, well,
Do what?
exactly. So
To have it by what?
you did, yeah.
Yeah, no, the actual expenses, yeah. John's put in some of those, and I have too.
So electrical registration,
Election
oh,
registration.
never mind.
That electoral. Election.
Is there anything else from, the school budget, I know that the request came in for the neurodiversity program as ARPA requests. Is there anything else that you're aware of, John, that could shift
Come on over here.
on the school level that's not reflected here?
I don't think there's anything else that could shift. There's nothing else that could be cut. So I mean, if we wanted to use an alternative funding source, then that would only be a crutch, because next year that item would have to come back in.
Right.
Unlike the item that we asked for the ARPA money, where we think 18 months is all we need on that crutch.
It'll reduce itself.
Yeah.
What about the vocational transportation, is everybody okay with that staying the same?
Well, I could update everybody on transportation. So the bid came back, 25% increase.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
We authorized the business administrator to enter into negotiations without changing terms, but she is not empowered to agree to anything above 5% without coming back to the school committee. So we'll see where that goes. We still reserve the right to reject it altogether, but the consequences of rejecting it means there will be no bus services next
We
year.
only had one bid
And
last time.
It will be lined up on Pomeroy.
Even more.
Yeah, with 0 buses,
Ian's favorite subject.
forewarned.
Okay. Yeah, nothing. And our street lighting, I know we'd reduced it one other time. Is there a way to look at it a little bit less, a few thousand? Or is that really real? We don't really
Anything
know.
that involves electrical or gas,
We
you
can't.
should not, unless you want to do away with it, or, drop the temperature in this building or another building to like 65 instead of 70.
Yeah,
And vice versa, in the summer, go to 75 instead of 70, you shouldn't even think about.
Okay.
Because even with this little over 9% increase in here, I heard a shocker on the way to work this morning that right now, with this nor'easter coming through, and fortunately, we're not getting that affected by it, but right now, natural gas prices are 113% above what they were a year ago.
okay.
Or actually, I should say, have had a 113% increase.
Increase, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the street light, it gets calculated in all that cow power stuff too, right?
All of it
Yeah,
does,
yeah.
yes.
So, yep. Alrighty, where are we, folks? Any other bright ideas?
Oh, no, I don't have any.
You don't have any, okay. I think this has been a useful discussion. I feel like we're getting closer here, but I'm not sure if we can close the gap by Thursday night. Can we?
I think we can.
I think we can.
Yeah.
What's the gap again?
Right now, it's only 10 to 12, but.
10 to 12,
11
but-
to
Well,
12.
then you gotta flip that around
11,000?
with, I would take care of the employee increases
Right.
first, and then back into this.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So,
So I think taking care of the employee increases for the non-contractual would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 35,000. It needs to be fine-tuned. I'm just a ballpark number.
I mean,
Well,
if you
don't
want.
forget,
if-
the
if-
assessor number's already in here, the treasurer's number's already in here, so we're only talking about really
Yeah, I didn't include,
highway, clerk.
Highway.
this is the figure you're working off of this sheet that you.
yeah.
Okay, I haven't looked at that yet.
Yeah, I didn't either. We just got it.
Okay, at any rate, I agree. Put those in first and then see where we are and then reduce from there.
But John, you're basing this on the Jacob study, or what are you basing this on? These figures, whatever you were putting in here. You want to talk about that now or not?
And then, actually, before you get there,
Yeah.
if you want to think about a quick way to get to ground zero, at least before those.
Yeah,
Fire expense turnout gear, $12,000, ARPA.
yeah. Or grants, which he's gotten grants for, I think, before. That's true.
Where's that in the budget? Is
Yeah.
that there?
Yeah.
It
Partly?
sits
Yeah.
on the public safety, right below, let's see, right below fire department building expenses.
Line 99.
No, I think anything I can switch over to,
Yep, actually, that's true,
we're
and
not
there have
talking
been
about a lot
grants.
of money here.
I think John has gotten a couple of grants in the past for that too, so. That would be a little help, okay. I mean, I think he's been, we've been dealing, I think, with the turnout gear pretty regularly, so I'm
Yeah, I mean,
hoping we're
he's-
getting
he
kind of
spent
caught up.
He spent $9,900, but
Yeah,
turnout gear is gonna be the same as the ballistic vest. It's only good for X number of years, and
Right.
when we've
Right.
got, how many people
Right.
on the roster? 82?
right, but he's been trying to replace, if I'm not mistaken, is it like
They each have their own?
six
We purchase 82.
at a time?
Have what,
This 12,000, does that,
a week there?
So, I know the costs have gone up,
Yeah.
but that sounds correct.
but I'm thinking it was a couple thousand per turnout gear, so he, if I remember, like, a couple years ago when John talked to us, he was talking about on a sort of a cyclical basis,
Yeah.
just trying to, replace a few at a time, so that he would be finally kind of caught up, and by the time the first ones were ready to expire, he was ready to get new ones,
Yeah.
I think, something along that line. So, but I think we have both budgeted it as well as, I think he had found, seems like we got one grant that covered, that he had gotten one grant that covered some of that too. But that could be an ARPA possibility,
This year.
yeah. All right,
So we don't want
yeah, go ahead, Francine.
Well, I mean, just under fire department expenses, if we're trying to find 10 grand, line 96, it's budgeted at 26,100. Year-to-date, again, 9 months into the year, he spent $12,000. There's 13,000 left in that account.
Which one?
Line 96, fire department expenses.
Yes, but don't forget that even though he charges stuff to fire truck maintenance,
Yep,
which we don't have an account for,
Yeah,
that ends up having to come out of fire
Right, but
department expenses.
as of this report, April 7th that Bradley gave, 0 has been charged to that line item. Because I just went through and inserted it all.
no, this fire truck maintenance is about 6,900.
That's what
Let me double check.
I thought.
the 6 and 13.
Oh, yeah, all right, yep. Well,
Lost it.
again, how can you charge expenses to a line item when you don't have a budget for it?
We allowed him to do it on the theory that it set a pattern for him to request dollars amount in those accounts. If he hasn't requested dollars amounts in those requests, when it comes up next year, it's not going to get charged there. He's had the opportunity.
Right, okay. And so
I
green,
mean, he's reluctant to say, okay, well, I guess I have to reduce fire department expenses to put something into fire truck maintenance. So that's his choice.
in his primary budget, he has nothing in there, even though we spent $7,000 year to date.
Yeah. So next year, he will not be allowed to do that. It'll go, he'll have to charge it directly to fire department expenses.
Well, I still say, fire department expenses, we can reduce by 6,000. And then reduce the turnout gear by 6. I don't know about zeroing out the turnout gear.
But I think you can do that either ARPA or get a grant, one way or another,
I'm more comfortable doing the turnout gear.
yeah.
It's
If we're gonna do it by
an
ARPA.
item, it's finite.
If we're gonna do it by ARPA, I don't wanna have to rely on a grant coming in for somebody to get turnout gear.
I'm not saying grant, I'm saying do it ARPA.
Do we have any idea what free cash might look like?
What might it look
Can
like?
hear you,
Free cash might look like.
I don't know, where we're,
Has it been submitted yet?
It'll be submitted the end of this week. We finished the final, shall we say, closeout adjustments this morning.
Is there any guesstimate range, or you don't
No.
say?
We never estimate free cash. I've learned that long ago.
But if you don't have accurate lines where you have, expenses,
Yes.
like administrative assistant, billing person,
spent.
you know, what John was just saying, it makes it very difficult to predict the following year
Yeah.
if you don't have lines that, you know, explain what's been spent.
Yeah, so for the fire department expenses, if that was budgeted at 26.1, right? Is that right? So by those two being split out, it looks like 12.2 has been spent on the fire department expense line, but 6.9 has been spent on fire truck maintenance. So right there, that's 19,000 right there has been spent out of that 20, whatever, 26.
Yeah.
So, you know, if those two get added up,
Yeah,
you know.
So if we cut the 12,000 from turnout gear,
Mhm.
and then I also, I took out the adjustment for the town clerk so that it could be part of the whole conversation.
Yeah,
That puts us to the positive by $2,800.
yeah, okay.
That's good. Figure out how to spend it.
so did finance post a meeting for Thursday? Okay. I don't,
Yeah,
you're gonna check with Chief Workman about?
What's that?
You're gonna check with him about the EMT and fire
Yes.
wages things?
Yes, I will.
okay. So, all right, so that gets us at least to some level of manageability here, if we can come to some conclusions with it. But I guess how we want to take a look at overall salary adjustments, is that our next discussion, or are we don't know what we're going to have for free cash. We don't know in terms of even the warrant articles, right? We've got to put in real amounts of money, right, for certain warrant articles when we're doing our transfers for capital stabilization and all that kind of stuff. We won't have that figure before our Thursday meeting.
We will not.
I think before Thursday, we need to give direction to the finance team over there, of Ed and Bradley, that they should be coming back with recommendations of X, whatever X is, so that we can fund the wage adjustments. Because right now, it's $2,800,
I'm happy to do that.
right?
I'm
And-
sure Bradley will help me.
Yeah.
All right, but do we have certain positions? I know you've worked on something,
Well,
Francine.
yeah, so, I mean, all I did,
Francine has too. So you both have worked on certain things about salary adjustments, so I know we haven't seen them all, so.
right. So what I did is I just took, Yep.
Everybody has a check, is below this benchmark.
so you would reset to the benchmark?
Everything has
Yep.
been, what this is a list, a chart adapted from the Jacob study. It was updated by giving in 2% increases for fiscal year 21 and for fiscal year 22, and then adding another 2% for fiscal year 23, just to set the proposed minimum, middle, and maximum in terms of benchmarks, and starting to map our folks out against this scale. So I didn't share it yet with everyone. We thought when we got to the point where we talked about who was the furthest behind in terms of wages, based on this schedule, just a comparison. It's not the scale, it's just a ballpark, an estimate to show us where our folks line up against what was established as kind of an area wage comparison for towns of our size.
So this would have updated a 2% for 22 and a projected 2% for 23.
Right,
Is that right?
right. And looking at their current salary and looking where they fall on this schedule. And so it would, what we did last year is we looked at the people, or prioritized the people who were, I guess, the furthest in the
10% off.
red by comparison to others.
Right.
The
Yeah,
people
10%
who,
off the
by
scale,
comparison,
10%.
had the biggest discrepancy in their wages. And if we want to take another look at similar this year, and again, I don't think we can afford to do everyone, But look at those people and categorize those positions that seem to fall far below, the farthest below, in comparing to others. So we can take a look at it and make that decision before, I think we, and plug those numbers in and see where we are in this budget.
Did you happen to come up with a cumulative number?
No, I didn't make decisions, I just checked the ones that were under, and then we have to calculate the difference between what would be a median salary and their current salary. And do
So
all the
our two
work.
forms are somewhat identical, just different approaches. Where I took, where they are right now in the budget, I took the treasurer's sheet that we had to vote and sign off on every June or July, took all that data over, added the 2% that we voted on across the board, and then I broke them into groups. You know, all the hourly folks as one group, and I adjusted for wage compression as
Okay.
well. So, you know, somebody that's been here 3 years sits still while a junior person coming in comes up because minimum wage is coming up and they're above that. You know, proportionately, this person needs to move forward. Ideally, or not ideally, this is the perfect world scenario.
Yeah, right.
Which I know we can't afford, but that's what I put in there. And then I added in there, you can see what the 2% is costing, so you would back that out of what the cost is, because we've already budgeted for that. It gives you the breakdown numbers. And so in round numbers, again, for hourly staff, this does not include department heads, does not include department heads, whether they're hourly or exempt, they're not in that group. Elected officials aren't in that group. And there are 3 people that I just don't have enough knowledge on where they should be. It was 10 grand to make that adjustment. And then I did the same for the elected officials as a group, and then department heads as a group. And then based on our conversations with hours and all that, there's another whole section that says, well, if we took the finance team and we put them at 4.5 days, what would that look like? And what would those numbers be on the hourly rates? Again, it's a starting point, it's just, there's a lot of assumptions in there. I'm happy to give both the documents over to Ed and well, Ed already has them, Ed and Bradley. Let them look at it and apply something to it and come back and present.
Well, and I'm thinking we ought to do yours and Francine's.
Both of them, put them
To
together.
go, if you
Take
guys
the best
would
of
take a
both.
look at them in more detail, if the formulas would be clear to see what you've done, right? Or if you have to be there.
All
Yeah,
formulas
this
in there. There's
compares
nothing
people to
hard-coded.
some outside standard, some
Correct.
external
Yeah.
standard, as opposed to just looking internally all the time and
Right.
and saying, well, this one's making more than this one, but look objectively at a third party and measure our folks against that
Well,
line.
that's where looking at surrounding towns or, you know, like the surveys that most associations do on a yearly basis, you can at least gather information on the size of the town and how long someone's been in the position is usually one of the questions, and you can figure out what the hourly range is. So at least you know you're in a range
Right.
for that position. I don't think it's really fair to compare the accountant, the clerk, and the treasurer collector against each other here in the building. You know what I mean? You need to compare the jobs, not
Right
just
to the
against.
peers, yeah.
Yeah.
So in all of these, we've got some outliers that probably need adjusting, I'm assuming, between your chart and Francine's chart?
Oh, yeah, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
But, you know, like on my chart, you know, I made well, yeah, it should jump out to you guys. I don't want to list names. But,
Okay,
Yeah.
you know,
yeah.
But what you're saying, John, is you've got about a $30-something thousand total?
37 to adjust it. I mean, and there's a big adjustment in there
Yeah.
when you get into the department heads.
Okay.
But that's why I said, you know, even if you just look at the hourly staff, you know,
Yeah.
it's 10 grand.
Right.
It's less than $1,000 a month to right the ship. And I'll be frank, my numbers are gonna be higher than Francine's because I adjusted for compression.
Compression.
You know, maybe that's a year 2, year 3 thing when we bite that chip off. But, and frankly, I don't know if we can get there, but the sooner the finance team can get to, you know, I think a 4.5 day is excellent in keeping town hall closed on that Friday. So it's a half day of the team working together, not answering the phones, not doing, clerical work, but getting
Yeah.
the bulk of the stuff done, and then maybe either every Friday morning or at the end of the day, that's the wrap-up where the whole team gets together, does their meeting uninterrupted from everything, resets for Monday morning. I think that would add
Yeah.
a lot of value to the
Well, it
team.
would give everybody the better information to manage the town. Because right
Yeah.
now, we're kind of like,
Yeah.
not sure where we are and making decisions with inadequate information.
Okay. So if both sets were given to Ed and Bradley, what would you like them to do with it? Just so we're all clear? In preparation for
Toss it,
Thursday?
Do whatever they want, but come back with a recommendation.
Yeah,
And then whatever that number is, we need to find it in the
Right.
budget.
Gotcha.
okay.
You up to the task? I am.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Francis.
No, I was gonna say, but it isn't absolute. I think there are gradations in here. We
Yeah.
can't go from 0 to 100. So that measurement would probably depend on the person's number of years working.
Yeah.
Some other qualifying
Right.
factors
Yeah.
that would get them from here to there,
Right,
or
yeah.
land them somewhere in between
Right.
based on those factors.
But this
I
would
just
show
talked
sort of
about.
the
Yeah.
path, or what we're trying to aim at, right? It may not be able to be achieved in 1 year, but it might be
Yeah,
in 2 years, or,
but it's the beginning of a process.
right. Okay, anybody have any comments, thoughts on that? So at this point, then we'll just assume you guys will pass that information on to Ed and Bradley, and,
Yeah, I'll make a copy.
or maybe, I mean,
Ed's got my spreadsheet
yeah.
already. Yep.
Well, probably, maybe just, why not send it to all of us so we've all got reference? Yeah,
I'll send it to everybody now.
yeah, so then we've all got the reference, and then we know what we're talking about. Okay. All right, so I think, can we do anything more here tonight on that part? I don't know that we do. Are we as good as we can do on the budget at the moment until Thursday?
Yep.
All right. Any other level of department review we want to look at, or anything like that? I think it's kind of all wrapped up, right? We got to we're looking at the summary page, so all that is based on the supporting charts behind it.
Correct. And then I do have one thing I should have brought up under the
Yep.
town administrator's report. And
Yeah,
then
go
I've
ahead.
got one other thing that we will need to do in association possibly with the budget, so,
Okay,
or I should say the town meeting warrant. First, Bob Kozub came today and wanted to get word to the select board so that they knew as part of the canal, the regional canal project, PVPC has sent out postcards to all the abutters, not only here in Southampton, but in all the towns, letting them know that, I think it's starting next week, they would have someone out going along the old canal route and surveying it. And this postcard that is sent to each abutter of that gives them the ability to say, to respond and say, no, I don't want anybody on my property, even though it abuts the old canal route. So they have that ability. But he did provide me with a sheet of all the people's names and addresses and a copy of the postcard that Pioneer Valley Planning Commission is sending out. So I can have Judy scan those and send it all to you tomorrow, so you have that information.
do you think it would be, I mean, I don't know what the level of objection might be, but would it be at all helpful to have some note that comes out from the town to these abutters to say, this is legit? This is really, please try to cooperate, and, unless you've
Well,
got some.
it's coming from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. I mean, we could put it on the website, as far as that goes, but again, you're putting it out to the entire town where,
Yeah.
there's
Only a few
there's
people.
probably, I don't know, 30 to 40 parcels that are actually
Yeah.
affected, so, but we could do that.
I
I
mean,
think there was going to be a request from the assessors to put out a message about the inspections that are going to start happening.
Yeah,
I don't
and they reached out to me, and I
Yeah.
basically responded to them as, no, can't provide you vests. We don't have those unless you want some yellow ones that say Southampton Highway Department on them. I may be able to, if the chief's in a good mood and will grant me a favor, be able to provide them with ID badges.
I was thinking more about messaging to the public. Did they ask you about?
They asked me about using code red, and I was very direct. I said, yes, you can if you want to record the message.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
Because
if they're
I'm-
putting out a
I'm-
message anyway about the
Yeah.
inspections, maybe
Yeah.
they can say, and by the way.
Yeah, because they have, I've found the departments have a wonderful habit of finally committing like the day they want the message to go out, and it falls back to me, so, yeah.
Okay.
I will provide the system to them and show them how to record it and whatever.
I think I saw the
Yes.
message about the assessor somewhere already. It might have gone out on social media about,
They didn't, yeah,
it was
Yeah.
on the community page. Somewhere I think I read it about them going out and doing inspections and,
yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get they didn't send me a copy of what they'd like to say, but
Oh.
they asked if they could use the code red, and I said,
Okay.
yes, absolutely.
all right. Okay, is there any other business that can't wait until?
I have a couple.
Oh, okay.
that could possibly tie to the ATM one. You get to vote, so you go for it.
Yes, John.
I've got one.
Okay.
Only because because we're going to be on Thursday, we have to cancel the PPP.
Right.
So there is one item in there that's pending that I would like the select board to take up without PPP's recommendation. And I don't think it's going to be an issue. But we've been asked to weigh in, we're not going to be able to, but I'd like the select board to approve a 12-week extension for Mary, anybody?
That's Petro.
That's a Petro, to continue on in the Council on Aging. Her term effective April 11th. So the term's already up. So if the select board votes on it tonight, then we can just stay in compliance and everything.
Be another 12 weeks.
Yeah, yep. And then we'll act upon it when it gets before us, when we can meet again. But this way, you know, she's doing the work anyway. She should get paid for it while they continue to search for somebody. So I'd make a motion for us to consider that and approve it.
All right, I hear a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion about that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, passes.
I'll pull out the original, give it to you to sign first.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Yep. And I think at some point, there's still a couple that would be coming toward you for scoring that, the Concom one. for
Yeah,
example.
we have all
Yeah,
those,
Yeah,
but
okay, good.
this is the only one that's affecting someone's paycheck.
Yep, all right. Okay, yes.
Then I have two things that if Lucy hasn't ordered the ballots, the select board would have to approve language for ballot questions. Have you ordered the ballots?
I am sending them out for tomorrow,
Okay,
well, Thursday.
okay. So I've lost my copy, but you have in front of you two ballot questions, which you have to approve the wording to put them on the ballot. One is associated with if we were to look to do a debt exclusion for the loader, which I did find out that depending on what the highway superintendent finally decides for options, they might have in stock in August or September, or if we had to order one, it would probably take 6 months, and it would be here in December. Knowing that, I am much more comfortable from my original stance of recommending that it be done through just a borrowing to trying to get a debt exclusion on it, with the theory being that, okay, if it was approved at town meeting but failed at the ballot, we could come back at a January or February special town meeting and ask for it to be done as regular borrowing or regular debt. So, if one of you would be as kind to let me borrow your copy of those ballots back, I will read them. So, there are two of them. First one has to do with a debt exclusion if you did want to move forward with a debt exclusion for the loader. Shall the town of Southampton be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to pay costs for the purchase of a new 35,000-pound GVW, gross vehicle weight, wheel loader for the highway department, including any and all costs incidental or related thereto? Yes or no? Question 2, and I know you haven't voted on this yet, but one member asked if this could be included as an annual town meeting vote and as a ballot question vote, and that shall the town vote to have its elected treasurer-collector become an appointed treasurer-collector of the town. And that one I would actually have to check because there's a certain date requirement of the number
You
of
can
days
keep that in.
between the ATM, between the ATM and the actual election.
All right, I'll make a motion that we include these 2 questions for the ATM as well as the subsequent ballot.
Okay, I hear a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
All right, and for discussion.
I'm just, walk me through this. So the question 1, question 2, if approved, right now, will go to annual town meeting or to the ballot box?
Both.
This is for
If they
the ballot box. It would also have to go to the annual town meeting, you're correct.
So,
But the select board specifically by statute has to approve the language for the ballot, and Lucy's about to order the ballots. So I put those together from past ballot questions to bring forward, knowing that the select board has to approve that language to even get it on the ballot.
so if I'm a voter, right, and I get
Yep.
question 1 as worded here, which, by the way, I am a voter, how much, I don't know the dollar amount.
That
I
was
don't
my
know what I'm.
question.
You are correct, but I know as a past treasurer, you know that the DLS directive of a debt exclusion doesn't allow you to put the dollar amount in.
Okay, well then, I
And
didn't recall that.
the first one,
Honestly,
Just to get it on the ballot, but when it's at the town meeting, we would have an amount, wouldn't we?
But the wording at the annual town meeting is entirely different.
Yeah.
But to John's point is, if someone didn't attend the annual town meeting or hear that discussion when they walk into the ballot box on a debt exclusion, yes, he's correct, because, and I don't know why they've done that. My assumption on that is because, and it's my assumption, so, that you may be looking to do a debt exclusion on something that's $228,000, or it could be $2 million. In any particular year, that doesn't go on the tax rate, only the portion that, whether you have borrowed for 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years, breaks it down so it could be a smaller amount. And that's my only assumption why DLS has done that.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, so on the warrant, that would be more specified with dollar amounts
okay.
for the town meeting.
This has to be a 2/3 vote, the first one, in order to end up on the ballot, is that right?
It has to be, well, the first one is it's borrowing, so whether it's a debt exclusion or borrowing, it has to be passed by 2/3 majority at the town meeting, and then a majority at the ballot box.
And
Simple
then
majority
what
at
about
the
the
ballot
second
box.
one? The second one is just
Second one
majority?
is simple majority,
Okay.
I believe. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Every
simple
year it
majority
comes
both
up whether we
ways.
can change the wording, because everybody thinks this is an override as opposed to a debt exclusion, which has a limited ability to go outside the 2.5. It's not clear to a lot of people,
That
unfortunately.
is the sample wording from DLS.
I realize that.
Yeah, but helping
not
somehow to
clear.
explain the difference
Yeah,
between
right.
debt borrowing and debt exclusions. But-
Right.
Okay, so I think we had a second. Any further discussion on this? And so the motion, I believe, was for both questions, right? Okay. So all those in favor of approving both question 1 and question 2, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Any opposed? No? Okay. It's a yes on both of those then.
Thank you. I'll get those to Lucy tomorrow morning.
Okay. All right.
The record, I'm
Yep.
not thrilled with how DLS makes us deal with those either, so.
Yeah, okay. Couple things. So I guess my concern still is a bit of a concern. I'm a little bit more comfortable with where we are in the budget. I think I'm concerned about getting all the warrant articles written up so that there could possibly be a moderator meeting on Thursday night. Is that the night? Robert?
Robert Floyd, College Highway, town moderator. You would have to have, good call. You really would have to have the warrant, because you then have the ability to change the wording.
Right,
Since this isn't going to be the warrant, but maybe the warrant,
yeah,
you could change it, and it wouldn't be fair to warn the people of what we thought would be the warrant,
yeah,
when you could more than possibly change it.
right. And understood, and for those couple ones, but I'm also looking at all the list of articles that we may have on the warrant, which I know we've only got a few that I've seen in draft form so far. I mean, I don't know what the reality is.
I'll rent out my reserved room for Thursday to you.
Well, I mean, my question was going to be, what's the latest date that you could do the meeting? I'm thinking, if we're not going to be voting on this stuff until Thursday night?
You still can have the meeting. If you post it, we decided Monday, the super latest, Friday preferably. Depends on
Monday's the
all
latest.
cooperation, of course.
Monday's the latest, yeah.
Monday, the
But I'm-
super latest.
Right, but in terms of actually reading out the warrant like you normally do? ahead of time.
I could do that someday next week.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. It was Thursday that was worrying me about that, because I don't think we're going to be.
Warrants, probably, thank you, I appreciate that. No, I
think we're
decided
gonna
that
be
a long
ready.
time ago, it's not going down.
Okay, so sometime next week, okay, we
Yeah.
can set that, okay, perfect.
Not only that, don't you, I mean, we have a meeting Thursday night. Don't you usually use this room?
He does, that's why
Although,
he had booked it first, I booked the second floor meeting room. I can ask if Robert isn't going to use this, if we can move our meeting here.
next Thursday, it looks like I will be out of town, so with Ed's permission, agreement, I will do it via Zoom with Easthampton Media.
Sure,
And you can be on with me?
sure, sure,
Okay,
okay.
good.
So you might do it a week from,
Thursday,
okay,
the 28th.
okay, that sounds like a better
Yeah,
option.
that sounds
Okay,
Gives us
good.
some breathing
Thank you, Robert. That gives
Cheers.
us a little bit of breathing room. Thank you, yep. Okay, with that, are we having any other discussion here, or are we otherwise ready to end this portion of our meeting? I think, do we need to go over the list of the warrant articles? I think we know what they are from last time.
Will the bylaws be ready to go?
Yep, they
Yes,
are done.
I got those sent to me
Those
today.
are done this morning with legal commentary,
Right.
et cetera. They're done, yeah. So we do have, probably we ought to fix too, though, some other select board meetings here. Just, we didn't get far into May while we're thinking about a calendar real quick. So we have we've got a regular select board meeting on the 26th, a FinCom joint one on the 21st. So 21st FinCom, 26th regular select board.
So it's, Thursday is at 6:30 though, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's already set at 6:30. Well, I think we were accommodating FinCom there to come in at that time. So we've got the town meeting on May 3rd. Does that mean that May 10th and May 24th would be our regular regular select board meetings? Looks that way, 2 weeks from the
That sounds
26th.
Yeah,
correct.
that would jump over the town election, which is good.
Right, so May 10 and May 24 would be regular select board
Well,
meetings? Is
except the, let's see, with the
that right?
May 3rd.
17th is the election.
17th is the election, right.
Yep,
So you're
okay,
not,
so
you're
that would
not
work.
trying to meet on that night.
No.
You're correct.
Nor on town meeting night. So, yeah, so the next meetings in May, then, regular select board meeting would be May 10 and May 24, unless anybody objects. Does that work out okay?
Yep.
Do we need to, sometimes we have a short little meeting before the town meeting, is that needed?
I've already sent out the
Okay,
request
so
for
we
the
should
library.
plan on,
May 3rd,
what, 6:30 or 6?
6 PM, I'd
6
say.
PM?
Uh-huh,
On the
okay.
day of the town meeting,
Yeah, okay.
at the library?
The school library? Okay, all right. So, anything else on that? If not, I think we do want to go into executive
Yeah,
session?
and two thoughts
Yes, sir.
to think about over the next 2 days before we meet on Thursday. Two different thoughts.
Yep,
One is, okay, if we don't have the free cash numbers of actually thinking about doing a special town meeting in June when we do to bring to do that split and bring forth the capital items. And then on that same thought process, if we're going to have to do a special town meeting in June, if we do have the ability to move the town meeting should we just move the town meeting to the beginning of June? No answer tonight, but just think about those two possibilities and how they run together.
You just said special town meeting?
Basically, okay, have the annual town meeting on May 3rd.
Yeah.
However,
have another one.
however, we're not going to know the free cash figures and be able to do the distribution into OPEB,
So we might need a special town meeting.
operating stabilization and capital stabilization. We could then do a special town meeting just for that in June, or instead of having two annual and a special, under that, just move the town meeting to the beginning of June.
First week of June.
Yeah, just something to think about and mull over for the next 48 hours.
All right, till Thursday. We'll mull
What
it
does
over.
MLP mean on the warrant?
Municipal light plant.
Right, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I hate acronyms, I should not have used it, I should have
Oh, that's
spelled
okay. I
it
thought it was
out, I'm sorry.
Municipal Light District, MLD. That's okay.
So, anyway, okay, so if there's nothing else, the select board will be going into executive session in a moment, and that will be for the following reasons, okay? Per MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body and the chair so declares.
Thanks, Rob.
MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, police union. MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, police chief. And finally, MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, highway superintendent. So may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting and go into executive session? And I believe we would not return to open session,
So move.
Second.
or we would. Do we have to? We will?
Will return to open.
We will return to open session, my bad, okay.
Yeah.
So select board to adjourn, we need a motion to adjourn, go into executive session, but we will return to open session. Sorry, my correction.
I'm not clear what the first item is.
We'll discuss it when we get into executive session,
Okay, sure.
okay?
Motion second.
Motion and second, okay? With that in mind, all right, all those in favor, roll call?
Aye.
Roll call? Fowles, aye?
Fishman, aye.
Piper, aye.
Okay, we are adjourned from regular session at 9:07, and we will notify you when we come back into session, I guess.
Hang on a second.
We got to turn that back up.
Sorry, I'm supposed to remind you, right?
Yep. Okay. This is the meeting of the Southampton Select Board for April 19th. We are reconvening in public session after having had an executive session, and would like to just share with the public that we have reached conclusion of our negotiations with the police chief and are proposing to enter into a new contract with Ian Illingsworth as the police chief for Southampton. This will be a 3-year contract starting May 5th, 2022, going through May 4th, 2025. This, as most people would recognize, is a 24/7 job, a 40-hour work week. The benefits compensation for the first year is $111,936.68. And going forward, a 2% cost of living increase on May 5th, 2023, and a 2.5% cost of living increase on May 5th, 2024. The chief will have a uniform allowance not to exceed $750. His vacation time is 30 days vacation time and 5 days of personal time. He will have the ability to have up to 2 additional personal days if he would like to do that for up to 2 mental health checks during the contract year. Sick time is according to the town's personnel bylaws, and he may roll over 1 week of vacation time upon approval of the select board. Let's see, what else would we like to say here? I think that's pretty much it. Must reside within the borders of the town of Southampton. We make available an unmarked police vehicle for him. And I think that's pretty much the essential information.
I'll make a motion to approve the
Yes.
contract.
Thank you.
And I'll second it.
All right, so all those in favor of approving the contract with Ian Illingsworth as the police chief, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, very good. So we will proceed to sign this and get it officialized. All right.
Super.
Thank you. I think we have no other business beyond that.
Motion
So,
to adjourn?
Thank you very
Second.
much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are adjourned for good
Great.
Thank you all.
at about 10:23.
This was on
Thank
the
you very
table here.
much.
Is this something you needed? It's the Southampton School.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.